I'll probably have to explain. I'll probably have
But
to
yeah,
explain
so we
again.
didn't know the movie. We actually looked it up after the fact because we were looking at it, and it just the couch and everything. It felt like we were trying to copy it, but it was too hard because it was like so different. I was like, I don't know what lens they're using. I don't know. Maybe they're using like an 85 and just they're way far away. But it looks like it was more like they were using a certain anamorphic lens. That was
Yeah, you could be using a fisheye lens, and
Mhm.
it's never going to give you the same if it's a spherical as what you get within an anamorphic lens.
Right.
So,
when
yeah, so
we were trying to match them up,
and it was an anamorphic.
framing,
It was
like,
actually
really hard.
yeah, so it actually was an anamorphic when I looked it up. It was a very specific anamorphic. Like I forgot even the name, but it was like a very specific anamorphic lens. And apparently he uses it to give like a very specific tone and feel to the movie or whatever. But
Should
yeah,
you
so
be in
that's
class too?
What?
It's already wait, my phone's
and so I was we were kind of just okay, so we're never gonna get it exactly the same. And like I said, issues with the slider and issues with just keeping it straight. So I'm just letting you guys know it's not great.
Our footage, yeah. I mean, I overlaid it so you can kind of see like what we were going for. But
and also, he put me in it and I look horrible. I'm just letting you guys know. He asked me to like put on a white shirt, but like it looks ugly and it doesn't match my outfit. And so and like I just come out of the shower, so it's just like this whole thing.
Here's
I look hideous. I'm just letting you people know.
No, I don't think mine is very great either.
Because he made me do like the maid scene, and I was like,
very
okay.
hard. Like it was harder than I thought it would be for the scene, and it was really hard for the spatial, just like how big their space was compared to what we had. So we had to use a very wide lens because we only had a little limited space. So it also makes it look a little weird. Like as you can see, the fridge is a lot bigger looking than they are from farther away. So. But yeah, I'll just like kind of show this and we can kind of see the difference. So I didn't want to do any audio on ours because I didn't want to have a copyright claim. No, it's kind of like laggy. I wonder if it's because I'm running.
Right, it wasn't like that. Yeah, it wasn't like that when you showed me the.
So as you can see, like the overlay, they're over there, and it's a lot farther away. And then you got Priscilla standing in for the lady. And we're trying to.
I was like so nervous. I was trembling the entire time.
We did all right.
Can you do it? Can you do it, please?
Our characters are definitely a lot closer to the screen, but it was also trying to like match up where they would be. I was just kind of showing like.
I just wish he could have the audio, guys, because it's actually kind of funny hearing the.
This was the actual character, and I wasn't just trying to match up the framing. I would have just did from the penguin's chest up, and did maybe like. The basketball, a little part of it, like the same where it is. But I was trying to kind of like match up where they were in the actual shot.
So he actually did get their placements quite well in the other shots, just not in that first one.
Okay, so I'm kind of like I didn't really know exactly what you needed for this scene, and I was having trouble finding the clip. So now I'll probably do it and put it in the group later.
What
Sarah, did
you
you see that I sent it?
And see, with our slider, it was starting to like bounce around. Like we just wanted to show how you could get the shots, how you can match it up. But it was actually a lot harder to match up the people with these inanimate objects on ours, especially in our like little narrow kitchen. So.
Yeah, our kitchen's one of those that looks big, but really is not.
But then like I was so pissed because the slider was supposed to like make it all smooth, but it actually made it very jittery.
No, like it's big in space, but it's very like crushed together. If that makes sense. Oh, right, yeah. Well, obviously there's a difference, but
yeah, that was it. So
well, I think it's quite nice. I think it was quite well replicated. I think maybe if you had used the table and the towel, you would have be able to replicate the movement of the slider with less
We
shape?
did. We put a table.
So I put stuff underneath. Yeah, like I took it off the tripod because I knew that was causing it to bounce around. And then I put it onto we have like a pull-out gaming table where you like set it up real quick for like cards.
Right.
And I put the slider on that, but I don't know. There was something wrong with it because it kept trying to lean to the right. And so we were
And
trying
it
to
kept
like
No.
getting
What I
stuck,
mean is putting the camera on top of a towel, on top of the table, and then just pulling the
that would
towel.
be better. Yeah, maybe we could have done that. We probably
Yeah,
should.
just try that next time and see how that works.
That way it doesn't bounce around.
Yeah.
I missed it. Play it again.
Oh,
You snooze, you lose, buddy.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the recording now, man. Because it's just the shot going back and forth. This was the main one that I was like, man.
So what we were saying, Brian,
You're trying to get the window in it.
TLDR, we figured out they were using an anamorphic lens, so it was never going to look the same. Our slider was bugging the entire time.
No, the
And-
slider wasn't bugging. Lakota hands were shaking.
No, the slider got stuck,
I
and then
wasn't even
it
holding
just was crooked. And yeah, and Coda forced me to model, and I was like,
Yo, you look different. Wow, you actually look pretty.
Oh, wow.
Priscilla always looks pretty, right? Go away.
That's a rude compliment to give.
I think you're always beautiful, Priscilla.
Thank you.
Priscilla,
honey.
you made that white dress look really nice.
It's not
But
a
yeah,
dress.
Mel, I definitely believe they moved that couch because they.
It's a big top, and I'm pretty sure you could see my bra in that. Because he was just like, put on something white, and I was like, I don't have any white clothes. And then I was like, okay, this, and then I ran.
We also did a light only from their left side, or their right side, I guess, but screen left. So the penguin has darker on the other side, kind of trying to copy the scene as well.
But yeah, Sarah, Brent, I don't know how you people can handle being on camera. It is terrifying.
Well,
You actually look like you was comfortable. You did good.
it gives you, for me, it gives me a reason. Like, I don't know, it makes me want to work out harder, live my life better. I don't know, it just makes me feel good. You know, if you like it, you like it. I mean, I don't like to be on camera if I'm working with people that are trying to get me to like look ways that make me feel bad about myself. Other than that, it's pretty good.
I just mean the confidence of it all. I was trembling the entire time.
I
think
love
we had
the
to take
camera.
Oh yeah.
I think we had to take like 6 takes, honey. Wasn't it like 6 takes?
That's
Yeah.
white.
Because the other thing about the slider was like it got stuck in the middle, and I was like, oh man, this is awful because it.
What kind of
Was it a
slider
cheap
did you
slider?
get?
That's a
I
cheap
went
one.
from Edelcrown.
No
Is
good.
it like a metal slider with a little piece in the middle that you slide?
Yeah, it has like a
Yeah.
plastic piece in the middle where it like
Yeah.
and then it extends past it.
Don't ever
So
get
I
that one
assume
again.
those suck.
Yeah, they
Well,
do.
yeah, but
All right.
I mean, you could pull off some stuff with it, but
Well,
it's
what
not
we
really
will
it's really not ideal.
send some recommendations our way, because
Newer.
Here it
You ever
is.
heard of a company called Newer? Like they make,
I have, yeah.
they're trusted. Newer, and like they compete with GVM and all those like lower budget brands, but they make really good quality stuff.
Is that the
I
one?
have
you
a
got?
I have a shark slider, which is like on 2 carbon fiber rails, and it's like the movement is through a rubber band or a rubber, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, like
So
a
it kind of gets
like a timing belt.
yeah, like a timing, exactly. It's the timing belt. So you get the smooth fluid motion. Or you can
That's
just
nice.
do a build your own dolly, get some PVC pipe and just put the tripod on a piece of board, put some skateboard wheels on it, and that nobody knows the difference. That looks just as smooth.
Okay.
yeah, too bad we don't own a skateboard. Dang it, we could have put it on the
You
table.
don't need a skateboard. Go to Home Depot, get some wheels,
Mhm.
and you put it on there.
Wood. I mean, yeah, there's ways to like make a do-it-yourself slider and do-it-yourself.
Don't worry, this is all trial and error. Go through
It's
the
kind of
experience.
interesting. Like you're getting the camera angles, and you have it lit pretty decently actually. It's a little distracting with the merger of the
Overlay.
the overlay. Like, if
Yeah,
we just
we
had
just
a
really
side by
did.
side, it would have been, I don't know.
Yeah, we were just afraid of like copyright because like YouTube has it
I mean,
on
I'm
there.
not really afraid of copyright for the footage because I don't care about I haven't just made the audio. But yeah, if you can just like see, like, oh, maybe I should move these.
Our whole thing was like, well, YouTube owns it, but I mean, YouTube got the rights to it, otherwise it wouldn't be on there. But also, we don't want to get in trouble
And
in
that's not
case.
it. Why is it so far away?
No rest, no glory.
There. Yeah, I was just kind of like trying to match the hardware. Yeah.
Priscilla, that's a top? Look like a dress.
It's like one of those like really baggy tops that you put with short shorts.
So Mel, I think you can. I'm not sure. I just know like last time we had something with audio, YouTube put it up and said.
Yeah, but that was something recent. Like this is a very old film.
True.
I mean, not very old, but
True. I just don't know how annoying YouTube can be. So it's like.
I just think since there's no music, especially, it's not gonna get flagged.
Yeah, you might be right. So yeah, you want to show yours now?
Nope, because I'm not ready. I will. I'm
Is
working
anybody
on
else
it.
able to do theirs?
We all failed, guys. I was
I was
like,
gonna
I
say-
don't know when I was gonna do it, then I
I'm
was like, oh,
almost
it's gonna
done.
be-
I'm almost done.
Here's where Daniel's crickets would come in.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I didn't know exactly what you meant, like by recreate the scene, what was important out of this lesson. So that was the other thing for me, because I was just like, are we supposed to be focusing on the lighting? Because it looked at the
No,
scene.
I said framing.
We explained it like
I've said
4
it many
times.
times. I've
Yeah,
said
and
it
it's in
many
the email.
Yeah, but I'm a visual learner. I have to see it now.
Yes,
I know.
and he explained
also
it like
read
4
it.
times. He showed the video.
No, but now I know because I'm watching yours.
I'm gonna
now
just
I
be
kinda
honest,
get
I
what you
didn't do
meant.
it. I was working.
I didn't know what you meant
It's
before.
okay, Brent.
Yeah.
We know you.
But the
So
other thing about
basically-
ours is like, you know, the character in the front foreground is a lot larger looking because we had to use a wide angle lens in our kitchen.
Yeah.
When it's obvious, like in the actual scene, it's a lot farther. Like their camera's farther away and they're zoomed in more.
Well, the truth is I went and I filmed one of my shorts this weekend, and I worked on the full screenplay. So, yeah, that's what I've been doing, and why I neglected this
At
project.
least you're being productive.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So like again, if it's all right with you guys for me to show the framing and then just post it up on the page.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you just as long as you get it done, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, obviously.
You get A for
Uh-uh.
effort.
What? I got an F for effort. I put no effort in.
But nobody else has theirs ready.
I'm almost done.
Yeah,
But
so there
I
you go.
also just
So
not
you
sure how to.
extension
Are you
guys.
exporting it or what's up?
Okay, by almost, do you mean like by the end of this meeting or by next meeting?
Oh, I mean by the end of this one, definitely.
Oh, okay. All right.
Like
Then
I'm just doing stuff on the timeline right now.
Well, will you be able to proceed and pay attention to the meeting notes?
If I had a bigger lens, I would have got like a way tighter shot on this.
Or do you
does
just
that
want
take
to, like,
priority?
I mean, I guess you can watch the recording later. when
Hey,
you
so
edit.
what would you guys say this lens would like the what was it 50 millimeter? Was it like what do you guys think this lens was?
This one is definitely not a 50. You can tell by the separation in the background. So you see how close they are, how close the camera is to them. So they are shooting on a wide lens. That's the benefit. That's why when we were talking about lenses, and I had mentioned a good lens to get or to start off with. Well, ultimately the best lens to start off with is ultimately a variable zoom lens, something that can go from wide to narrow.
Yeah.
But like if you are like me, I have all primes. So like when I go on trips, like overseas and stuff in the military and whatnot, and I can't really bring a lot or all my gear with me, I have to make a decision like what lens do I want to bring? And normally I go with the 24 because it's considered a wide, but you can still get some good depth of field. So this lens that they're probably shooting on is probably either like a wider, it's not a 50, it's probably a wider lens. It could be a 35.
So I know they're
but
all
I doubt
anamorphic
it.
because I looked it up, but like I know the only thing we
You
knew
think
is
it's
that
like a
they're all
35 or a 24?
It could
so
be, yeah, it could possibly be a 30 or 35, but I'm gonna say it's probably like a 24 or something like that, just because you're getting two subjects in your frame, and then if you look at the background, unless they really crunch the f-stop down so they can get a lot of that detail in the background. But normally when you shoot on 50s, like that background is gonna be blurred out. Like you're not gonna be able to make out like the window. You're just gonna see shapes
well,
because 50s.
that's why we were confused because like because it's an anamorphic lens, that the blur is a little less. So we were like, and it's wider too. So would that make it different?
Well, you're talking the difference between sensor size and the actual length of the lens itself. So the lens is gonna do what it does regardless. But
Mm-hmm.
like when you're talking about, so like I shoot the Blackmagic 4K, and you can choose up to 4K, but then you get this black, shadows around the edges because the sensor is really not big enough or should I say the lenses aren't meant for 4K or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So you would need wider lenses, or not wider lenses, but the base needs to be wider.
Gotcha.
In a sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we just
Okay.
know how
I was
much.
trying to figure out like which ones they're probably using in each. We were using, because we were in the kitchen, we were using just like
I think we use like a
14 millimeter, we used 24 millimeter, and I think at one point I used 35, but I don't know if I actually did that or not. This might be 35. I don't remember.
I think you did because you swapped it up. I remember you swapping it.
It's kind of hard because you're shooting smaller subjects as opposed to shooting humans.
Yeah.
So it's going to be harder to try to match that lens wise. But yeah, I'm going to say just because of the focal length of the background, I don't know. I would say it was a wider lens, and that's the thing, they like to shoot wider because you can get closer to the subject, get more detail, but actually at the same time getting more stuff in the frame, in the picture as well. So they use a lot of, with the exception of my favorite movie, Army of the Dead, which is yeah. So if you want to know what a 50 millimeter looks like, go look up Army of the Dead like right now.
Well, I have a 50 millimeter. I just wasn't sure if they were using some other kind of tricks or something. But I know it's pretty dark.
Because like we said, because it was
also pretty dark, so I was like, maybe they're
we didn't have as much
come in through the windows and
we didn't have as knowledge on the anamorphic, so we were like, we didn't know how much of a difference it made to the actual scene or not at the time. And then Jorge explained it a little better, and we did some research.
No, you can share on here if you're comfortable, Mel. I don't mind. Ours wasn't that great either. Like we're just trying to show like how it is hard, especially because it was like trying to do 3 things at once. I had to try to pull the focus while shoving it in, while framing it right, keeping those characters up because the basketball kept rolling around.
Yeah, so in one of the shots you can actually see the little spice jar I have holding it up behind it.
I think you guys accomplished what you guys set out to do. You guys got the shots.
Yeah. So is the idea to put the actual movie behind it so that you can see that you have the people in the same place, like, and the sizing the same? Is that kind of like the idea to this?
You can if you want. I just did it to kind of show like what we were going for because I don't know, I had it without and it was kind of just a little more boring to watch.
No, that makes sense.
It's getting darker because it's like going out of opacity, so it's supposed to show the scene.
Yeah, sometimes I'm a visual learner, so I almost think that like keeping this, like, I don't know if you guys do this again, like teach this class again, having this as an example really helps, like the visual example instead of just saying framing.
Yeah.
What exactly do you mean? So that now yeah. Now I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
I think we did.
That way, and it's just this movement of like a slow movement. I wasn't able to get it as slow as they did, but I tried to like copy.
Because I just thought framing meant like the size of the just like the shot, but I guess like it includes like the placement of the characters and relative to each other, and that makes sense.
And relative
I
to where
gotcha.
where the screen is, like if they're in the center, are they off to the side?
When you do that push in on the penguin, he looks so mysterious.
I know. That's why the
It was
audio.
actually kind of funny. We had the audio on and we were just listening to it with this footage. And it was funny hearing that guy talk all
His
it
voice.
was like a penguin coming out.
It was quite funny. I wish we
Yeah,
could put
it was
the
an
audio.
interesting
It would have
exercise.
been funny. Do you guys like the touch of the hat? We thought it would, be a nice touch.
It would orient. It would show where the basketball is looking.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love the exercise. I love it.
I told you, honey, we'd get used out of that 4th of July hat.
Yeah, I didn't believe it.
That's a very patriotic basketball.
All right, so hey, James, were you able to do this? Wants to bet he didn't. Hey, James.
Okay. Raphael's idea is not for the faint of heart. Okay.
Raphael's using bugs, so once he's done with his, that'll be interesting.
Oh, I'm so stoked to see that. Bugs.
Okay. So I use multiple. I kind of use multiple different things. And just fair warning if I am able to show it. One of them is a pretty creepy looking doll.
I love creepy dolls. It makes my life.
Nice. Of course you do.
Yeah,
Of course
so
you
you guys
do.
want to move? I mean, like, if no one's ready, well, Mel's the only one who has one, or does anybody else have did anybody else do the exercise?
Cue the crickets.
I love
I'm just trying to
crickets.
figure out how to share it.
We should do a video where there's like actual crickets and then they're making the cricket sounds. And then
No,
someone
don't do that.
No, and then somebody comes up and just starts eating them. They're like, I'm just eating it. It's your face crunching down our crickets.
Gonna have to give me a little
Hey,
more on those boards. Oh, using tech.
Yeah.
do you guys have this just by itself as a clip that you could share with me? Because it was kind of daunting to be able to actually go in the video itself, because I don't really have a computer, so I'd be doing it all on my phone. And if I had just what you guys did to base it
I
on, it'd
shared
be a
it
lot
in the
easier.
chat.
In the
The
chat.
clip of
Cool.
the,
Thanks.
We'll send the video in the WhatsApp and the chat.
Well,
after-
Mel said
probably-
he sent it in the chat, right?
We should probably send it on the WhatsApp
you?
one, just because the chat disappears after.
Oh yeah, I meant the WhatsApp. I
okay.
shared the clip. Just look up like Minority Report Part 4 on YouTube
Oh my God,
from
it's
like 11
snowman.
years ago.
Oh, is that a little snowman?
That
That's
makes me want to lick
so
them. Okay, I'm gonna
What are you
shut
guys
up.
talking about? Oh, you're talking
That's so cute.
All right, so I guess we'll just move on
That
to.
doesn't look creepy. I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of creepy.
I love that, Crystal.
No, I said I used multiple subjects. That was not the creepy one.
Oh, okay.
I did it like there were like 4 shots, right? So I used like 4 different sets of subjects just to get it more
Wow, you
accurate.
really wanted more work for
Oh,
you,
cool,
didn't
all
you?
right.
It was easier.
Yeah, it
Oh,
probably
yeah.
was. 'Cause I swear they moved them around. Like I know
They did. They totally did. There was no way some of those movements. No, there was no way.
There was no way he was still flat facing the window.
Yeah.
Okay, I just don't know how to share this because it's on the laptop and I'm zooming on an iPad.
Okay. Do you want to like share your screen and then you can like show it on the
Oh goodness.
iPad? No.
I mean,
Okay.
would it be better if I
What if you sent it?
logged out of the meeting and then I mean, I can send it. It will just take time to export.
Okay. Well, you
Yeah, it'd
could
be
send
easier
it
just to
on-
it would be easier just to see it. If we could, I mean, you could share your.
So no, what I'm saying is like if she sends it, we can watch it through like your computer or something.
It's gonna take a long time. Exporting takes forever.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like I mean, I cut it down to a minute. I kind of shortened the scene.
You cheated, huh? No, I'm kidding.
Not Duggan.
I mean, if you want to show it through, if you want to log out and log back in, you can do that, or you can share your screen and then share your camera of just kind of showing it if you want. Either way.
I'm gonna try logging out and logging in.
Okay.
So she's gonna log in on her computer?
Yes, so it's gonna log in on a laptop.
Okay.
Okay.
How long will that take?
Yeah, I don't know, 'cause I was like, now we have to wait.
Right? Patience, people, we will get to them. We will get to. But yeah, I don't know. Like Raphael is very creative. His idea is very interesting and innovative. It's just the dead bugs that kind of give me the heebie-jeebies.
I love it. I want to see it.
I don't know
He's
if I
building a tiny set for it, so that'll be interesting.
Bugs.
Yeah. Okay.
I used to love Fear Factor and stuff, you know, with all the like
No,
the bugs.
I love like spiders. I think
The
they're
green.
adorable. It's the cockroaches that cannot handle.
Oh, dude, we had a house infested with cockroaches.
Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Exterminated times.
Hey, like on a movie when they use bugs, are they actually like putting bugs on those people?
Oh yeah,
Man,
most likely.
Let me look it up because I doubt. I know
I
people.
know there was a movie where they were actually like they were covered in
Do
worms.
you know the movie?
Not
No.
every movie. 1 second.
But I know they were actually like they were covered in worms and cockroaches. It was something about like, infesting their house. I don't know.
Let me see.
Because I doubt
Movies
they had
will
that-
often
I bet
use
it's a lot of
live
CGI
bugs
as well.
on camera instead of CGI to make their story feel more real and to get your skin crawling. Real live insects like spiders, locusts, and butterflies play crucial roles in many memorable blockbuster films. Okay, but you can't squish them, I assume. Otherwise, that would like get at some specific person's spannies. So, let me see. Do they really
So I
kill
think
bugs in
I
movies?
just had to step up for a second. My cat got himself caught.
Here,
So for the bugs, I think
when
some
trainers. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think bugs. I think some shows it's fake, and then others are real. Does that make sense? It's just like, you know how some people film stuff and they actually do the real deal, and then
Yeah, I
other
feel like-
people film stuff and make it fake.
I feel like it's
So both
So,
exist.
so
also
it says here.
some of
Do
them are
they?
probably CGI on the bottom, and then like if they have a huge pile of them anyway.
Right, like
so
something
here-
like Fear Factor is real, where like when they use the bugs in like say that pyramid movie or whatever, it's fake.
Okay, so here's the thing. I googled the specific things. Do they really kill bugs in movies? First of all, they said when a trainer finds an ant or roach that died of natural causes, they keep it in their freezer for later use in a movie. Oh, that's creepy. Script calling for a dead insect, or of course, kill a bug just to make it to a set. Say the ants were crawling on a body, explains Gina Brockett, a trainer with Brockett Films Fauna. So they use like dead bug. I don't know what's worse, honestly. Do they train flies for movies? Insects are not actually trained for the job, obviously. That is almost impossible, obviously. You just need to learn to control them using some techniques, such as light, air, temperature. I could light a little fire under you or set you on something that's really hot and flies would appear.
That's gross.
Yeah.
Yucky.
Because it is gross. What do you mean? Does nobody else think it's gross?
No, Sarah just loves to play devil's advocate. You cannot tell me that having dead bugs on you is awesome. No.
I would do it. I would do it. And I'd
Yeah,
be
you
like,
do
"Oh."
it, but I'm not saying it's like the best thing ever.
No, but I could definitely think of better things to do. But it's fun.
Exactly.
I
And
would
if
do
it weren't for film,
Yeah.
I'd like some real serial killer. And if it weren't for film, I'd be some real.
Oh yeah.
Has
Anyone
Yeah.
seen bugs before?
Actors, man, I'm telling you. No offense, Jorge. No offense, Jorge. Okay, guys. So like,
We're
is
still
she here?
waiting. Elle said she's gonna check it and then she'll.
Yeah. So should we just start or
I mean,
like?
we did start. This is part of it.
No. I mean like, how long is it gonna take? 'Cause
She said it's a minute, so I'm gonna give her another minute, and then if she's
Okay.
not ready, we're moving on.
with the yeah, because we can't wait for like too long, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Brian or Jorge, this actually goes with today's thing. Do you guys have any tips or techniques for like getting cinematic looking shots with whatever equipment you have?
I just got done from a shoot a couple days ago where I got to use some of my new equipment that I got. So some
Woo.
tips I would say would be to plan properly. That's a hard thing to say because like we were planning this movie for like a good month and a half now, and then when the shoot comes,
What?
then that's when all the drama starts. When you actually start, the day of is when the drama starts, when people start calling out, people start saying, oh, well, I'm only available this day, I'm only available that day. So
But
then
they
like,
tell you that last minute?
yeah, it's funny like how it works. Like when you're casting them, they're like, you know, you ask them what's your availability, and they say, oh yeah, whenever you need me, I'm free. And then you know you cast, and then when you start scheduling stuff, then they say, well, no, I have to pick up my kid, or I have to do this, or I have to my dog. And it's
Oh
like
my God, that's so annoying.
you didn't say that when I casted you. You said whenever, and then now here we are, and it's something completely different.
Do you
So
like make buffers for that?
Well, the same thing
I'm
happens.
not used to double casting two people and having somebody linger around waiting for somebody to call out. I'm not used to
Yeah.
that. But
I
I think
also
I'm gonna start doing that from now on.
I see the other side too when somebody's casting for something and they make it sound like they're casting for something, say acting, and then you like, find out more like I'm into that, and then they're like it's background.
Well,
And you're like,
that's
dude,
not seeing the other side. That's just a different scenario.
that's yeah. Well, no, what I meant other side is like this is the like from the view of the planner. And
No,
then
but that's the thing. That's a different scenario. If it's like, oh, person wasn't clear to you about what role you would have. That's different than like, okay, this is your role. Please arrive on time. And then they're like, oh, by the way, can't make it.
Yeah.
Oh, but anyway, I digress on that aspect. But so it goes like I'm taking multiple roles in this movie. I'm not only shooting the movie, I wrote the movie. I
Oh my,
I am.
You just fell underwater.
I'm scheduling the movie for this movie. So while I'm doing the schedule, I have to work around certain people. So we have the main actress who's only available the one day. So it's like now we have to shoot all her stuff. Luckily enough, she only had like she didn't have any she had like 1 or 2 lines. She didn't have that many lines, but we needed her car, her vehicle, because it's a sequel to another film that somebody else shot. So we needed her car to pick up from the last movie. So like we had to get all of her stuff that day and then pick up from the rest, which completely like totally just went and just, because if it were up to me, I would have shot her stuff last because she had the least amount of stuff to shoot.
Right.
But because she had the one day, now I had to make her a priority. So scheduling in as a cinematographer, I know I'm like, oh, like now I have to shoot her stuff first, and that can take a really, really long time, So, and I have in my head, like I already know, like I'm like these dialogue scenes are gonna probably be the hardest ones to get or take the most time. So normally that's where I start off with the dialogue stuff first, and then worry about like all the outside stuff later on.
Gotcha.
But because she was only available one day, I had to start with her first. So, I mean, there's a tip for actors, even though this has nothing to do with being a tip for cinematographers, just having the availability to help the cinematographer altogether. And as for
and I guess just knowing your schedule, right? From the sounds of it, like it's okay to say I'll be busy because I feel
Or to
like
even like give a might, like, oh, I might have something that day. I'm not sure.
Well, they're not going to tell you that because
I
if
know.
you do,
I'm saying like for the actors in here or anyone listening that is wanting to act, that is a good tip.
I mean,
Oh yeah,
for sure.
It's okay to
Yeah.
say
Yeah, yes.
I might be busy, because I understand that like you might be afraid of losing a job. You might not know if this thing you'll be busy for you're still gonna be busy for in like a week or whatever. So like you also don't want to miss out on the job, but just be clear, I might have this thing, so at least you guys both know what you're getting yourselves into, that kind of thing.
Oh, I don't know. I have zero tolerance for excuses like that because I'm in the military. So you're not gonna sit there and tell me like, oh, your schedule is any more busier than mine. Like, there's no way. Because like I'm busy, but to sit there and say, oh well, I have, I got this, that, and the other. But that's not what you said when I casted you. I asked you what your availability was. You said whenever. So like, and I'm not like last minute, oh yeah, we're gonna shoot tomorrow. No, this is like weeks, months, like ahead of time. I give people so much time to take leave off of work if that's the case, but I normally shoot weekends, but not everybody. Some people work weekends, so cool. Like, but like the shoot is coming. Like we plan it. Like I give plenty of time to get everything situated, get work, whatever work you have to get, like get
That's what I'm saying. Like, be clear. If you might have something, be clear, because you don't want to be known as that actor that bails out last minute.
And that's another tip for cinematographers, because that's the big back and forth between actors and cinematographers, is because the actors don't understand like how long one shot can take to set up. They don't understand that. They think, oh, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to get this one shot, and then you don't need me anymore. You can shoot all his stuff. Like this was another shot I went to in Baltimore. I was gripping for this, and my friend Donovan was the DP, and everybody on the set was like, there was so much negative vibes on the set towards this one specific actress, because she's like, this bombastic person who, I work with the cast from The Wire. I work with this. She's done a lot of background work in actual big feature films, but like her actual lead stuff is like garbage. But she is like, she comes in and she's like, oh yeah, like the DP is gonna shoot my shot, my close-ups, and then I'm gonna go home. And I'm hearing this, like I'm setting up a light right next to her as she's telling another actor this. And like, I didn't say anything because this is not my set, this is not my shoot, and I'm just a grip. But Donovan is my he's my friend, so like I go to him and I'm like, hey man, like she's under the impression like you're gonna do the one take and done with her. And he's like, no, I need her the whole night. Like we need her just because her dialogue might be done. I still need her in shots. I still need her in background. I still need her in foreground and stuff like that.
Right.
And she didn't know that.
And that's the thing that kind of like upset everybody, because like she should know with her experience.
She should have known that from the sorry to interrupt, but she should have known that should have been like in the like not itinerary, but that should have been like in the
sure, like so he had told her that.
Nobody said, like when I shoot, when I do schedules, I always put it out there in the email. I said prepare for at least an 8-hour day. I go for 8-hour days. The norm is 12 to 16 on big Hollywood studios.
Most of the time it goes over 8 hours. Most of the time it's 10 hours, or at least on the ones I've been on.
It can go over. Like the shoot I did over last weekend. I put in the schedule. I was like prepared for an 8-hour day. We went over 2 hours the first day, and then the second day we wrapped an hour early. So I made up for him. I was like, all right, I'm sorry, you guys. I told him, I was like, I'm sorry for it, but we're gonna wrap early today. And we did. And I was so proud of that, because like that was a promise I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to keep, but I made it work. But a lot of actors don't understand like how the actual craft of movie making works. So they come in and they're like, all right, I did my skit, I can go home. Because like,
it's important to know a little bit of all the aspects.
Yeah, it's good to know a little bit about like, what the camera guys are going through and the cinematographers going through, just so like don't be under the impression that like you're not needed on set like after the fact. But the director was upset with her. The director was going back and forth, and they eventually just like, you know what, we're just going to recast you. And because they didn't start shooting. They barely started shooting with her, so they were just like, we'll just reshoot all the stuff we shot with you.
Yeah, and like you said, if she
And-
has worked on these huge sets, she should have known that. Like the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, if she was worked on all this stuff, she should know that these are like longer days.
Yeah.
Don't
But
you just
I
hate the
always
people that
put
do like just a little,
Because
like
if you're
do
a
this one
background in
thing
a,
and thing.
studio feature, it's probably still you probably still need to be there for most of the day, right? For
yeah.
big studios, I'm assuming.
Yeah, when I for my movie for Kill Mary, I had 3 background actors, and I told them, I was like, it's the same with them. I was like, prepare for an 8-hour day. It may run longer. I understand you guys are background, but I still need you like in the background. You get what I'm saying? Like even you never know, because I might get to a shot and I'm like, well, you send your background actors home, and like you might need to come back to a shot. You never know.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
So like I always I try to keep people, well, I always make sure that I have everything I need from a person before I release them and wrap them up and say, you guys can go.
That's
So, so honey, what's the situation with Mel?
Mel said she's ready to go. So Mel, if you want to go ahead, and then we'll come back to like all these other things.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
just wanted to make sure we didn't forget it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. I have not used this laptop before. Okay. The share screen.
Oh
Host
wait,
disabled participant screen sharing.
I was about to say, let me make it. There we go. I made it available.
Still don't know how to do that, by the way. I keep making people admins in the group, in the other group chats.
Okay, is that working?
Yep.
Okay, let me just go to the beginning.
Little princesses.
Yes, it was easier. Like
Oh,
you
no,
said that you had
definitely.
trouble. You said that you had trouble, getting the shot
So
super
cute.
wide. So I wanted to just use very small things in
that
order
makes
to make
sense.
it look far away.
It's
Okay.
adorable. I love it.
So this is just this is my attempt. I was not able to do that slow zoom. So when it gets to the zoom, it's going to be faster. But yes, okay, I'm just going to play it.
Why does Belle have her back to Cinderella?
Oh,
Because she didn't.
yeah, I didn't notice that till later. I turned it around later. See, I turned it around.
Oh, okay.
It's cute. I like the little dolls.
I used whatever was available.
No, that makes sense.
Oh, I remember when I was a kid, there used to be like those dollar stores where you'd get like little kits of the princesses and like changing outfits.
Okay, so there's the creepy doll.
Where?
Wait, I'm not seeing. I only see
I'm not seeing
the.
anything. I'm
There,
only seeing
right
Cinderella.
there.
I'm not
I
seeing
can't
a
see
playback.
anything. I just see the
It's
interface,
not playing?
the Venturi
No,
panel.
it's not.
Oh, how'd it
playing.
get paused? Sorry about that. When did it stop?
It
never
never played.
began.
Never
Never
started.
played. Yeah.
Wait, what? Oh,
Yeah,
you mean it only stayed on the
Yeah, on
first
the
shot?
Belle and
It
Cinderella.
only stayed on Belle ignoring Cinderella, pretty much.
Oh, okay. Okay, I wish I'd known that. Okay, resume share. It says your screen sharing is paused. I'm trying to click on resume share.
Hold on, let me see.
That is.
I'm gonna. Well, let's see.
Were you hearing the audio though?
Mm-mm.
No.
Nothing
Oh
was
yeah, I
playing.
didn't know that.
I'm gonna stop your
I've just been
participate. I'm gonna stop your
hearing it.
participating real quick, and then we're
Okay.
gonna maybe reshare it.
Or is there a way for you to like grab it rather than me sharing it?
Not if it's not exported. I can't get it from my screen.
Oh yeah, I just thought maybe there was a way, since you were the host, to like for you to manually go to my screen rather
Well,
than me
we can
hitting
always
screen
see
share.
like the frames. She does have frames separate.
I think there is some way to do that, but I don't remember.
Okay,
how.
if I can
Does
just
anybody know how to do that? Like where you take control of someone else's screen?
and wait,
yeah,
does it?
I don't think you can do that on
is-
Zoom. I think you have to program for that.
Okay.
I think what happened is for some reason it's not letting me do full screen.
Because yeah, so to do that on my computer, there was like a whole.
Can I try again?
Yeah, try again. Let's see.
Is it working now? Is it
Full
full
screen.
screen?
Full screen.
We can see your mouse moving.
Screen.
Okay, and
it
it
doesn't-
wasn't like this before, right?
Right.
Or was it? Okay.
No,
No.
it wasn't. It was just showing the editing, and it wasn't showing your cursor. moving around.
Okay. Okay. So I think it's gonna work now because it says I'm doing it.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. Let me try that again.
Like I said, if it doesn't, we can always just see the frames of the images.
Yeah, I didn't realize it wasn't working. No, no, I did a thing. I want you to see. Okay. Okay. I just complained.
Okay, now there's a play button. It's
Is it
moving.
working?
Yeah.
It looks like it's working, yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're using that.
That's awesome.
That's good.
What is
That's
that?
really cool. If you look at the corner of the screen, you see it's the lady walking in.
Yeah.
I like the popsicle stick.
Okay. So
hand.
see, yeah, I turned Belle around.
How did you make the popsicle stick push that little fake lipstick so well without falling?
It's a back scratcher, so it has a curve.
Oh, gotcha.
Brilliant. Ingenious.
Is that you, Sarah? Okay, there's the creepy doll.
Yeah.
I love them. They're so cute.
Mhm.
And the snowman. This is great, Arden.
Gives it a chilly feeling with all the blue in the screen.
Yeah, it does. I like that.
Yeah, I did not know how to zoom in that slow. It was really hard.
Yeah, it was.
It just looks like
It
he's
was,
eating.
it
He's
was actually
smiling
dollying it, not
and
zooming.
zooming in like.
Oh.
So it's like pushing the
Okay.
camera closer to it. But yeah, nice job. I like it.
Yeah.
My favorite part's just the little, the little lipstick coming in. That was awesome.
I wanted to have, there were 3 subjects.
Yeah, that was really good.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, dolly, that would have been hard though to dolly.
Yeah,
Well,
no, it
since
is. Especially if you don't have
what
like a slider.
camera were you
So-
shooting on?
It's a Canon. Hold on, it's
Is it a little DSLR
hold on.
or is it a
Right
big
here.
DSLR?
Well,
Because-
what's little and what's big?
Well, yeah,
A Canon EOS M50.
I guess that's a decent size. I was just saying because you're shooting like dolls and stuff. Like you could have. I think Jorge was mentioning it. You could have easily just like put it on a towel or something and just pushed it on the table or something to achieve that look. It would have been difficult, but I don't know.
Yeah, instead I did the like manual zoom,
You
but
did the zoom.
I was not able to do it that slow. Now that makes a lot more sense that it was a dolly.
But you got the angles though.
Yeah.
You got the angles. I will bring this up though.
I was not paying attention to lighting or anything else.
Yeah, I brought this up on Lakota's shots too. You're not the original movie is the subjects are human, so they're different sizes. But when you're shooting like action figures and toys and miniatures and stuff like that, it gets difficult to shoot on a normal lens. So what they have is like they have lenses dedicated to shooting like really small. They call them micro lenses, and they're dedicated to shooting like smaller subjects like bugs, insects, and like getting really, really detailed detailed from really small things. So yeah, I'm just saying. I was just gonna put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have one of those lenses. I kind of share this compute. I mean, I share this camera with other people that I live with. So I'm pretty sure I have one of those lenses.
Oh no, there's nothing wrong with what you had. Like you got the
I'm
angles.
just giving you a tip.
That's really that's all that
Yeah,
matters.
thanks.
I'm just putting it out there for people to know like that there is a thing with lenses. So like when you're shooting really like let's say if you've ever seen a shot like of a quarter, like they get a shot in the quarter and the quarter is like really, really like big in the screen, and you try to mimic that, and like you're not going to be able to do it with a normal lens. You would have to use the micro or I don't have micro lenses, but I have a magnifier that you put on top of the lens that kind of gives the same look.
Oh, did Raphael share his?
No,
No,
not yet.
I don't think
It's-
Raphael
it's
has
not
his
there.
done yet, right?
No.
Oh, okay. He said,
Okay.
oh, what? Oh, I just saw in the chat, he said, thank you.
Yeah, he's
No, about the tip for the micro lens. That was really
Gotcha.
useful.
Jorge, you have your hand up?
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna tell Mel that great job on mimicking the scene. That really worked. And I think that it is very important to understand that this exercise can be seen as very different from very different perspectives. And I think one of the perspectives that maybe would be very useful to look at is that you understand why you moved the camera in the way you moved it and what made you feel seeing the results of that movement. Because what the whole mimicking of the scene is a very good exercise to see what's happening. And yes, it's not just about copying a move, it's about copying a move but doing it on your own and trying to understand what happened in the scene and what motivated the camera movement and the camera takes that you're using. I think that's one of the most important things, that you understand why. Because if we don't register those things, then we can copy any movie and we will learn nothing because we're just focused on copying something. So I think one of the big things that we should really focus on is why did we move the camera with this intentions? That's all I want to say.
My answer to that for this specific scene is we start out wide to establish the shot, see where we are, what the room looks like, and to let us see the lady walking up in the background. Then we switch to the 3 shot where we see her. We have enough headroom for her so we can see all 3 of them interacting together. And then once we start doing the two shot, well, the over the shoulder shots, we start dollying in because the information's getting more intimate and they're having a more personal conversation. So we're getting closer into that space with them.
Correct.
Especially,
and one of the people that I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just want to say, like, especially because it does contain one of those like techniques that or I guess maybe tropes that I really like for when the character has like an important monologue, because that was kind of when he was starting to say, gosh, I can't remember, I'm too nervous. When he was just starting to go into his monologue, that it slowly closes in Dolly, not Zoom, but it starts to slowly close in on him because it's like a moment of it's like this is an important moment. We want the audience to really be paying attention to what he's saying, and it's I see it a lot in really important moments in films when a character like starts talking about something important, and if it goes on for, you know, if it's more than just a couple of seconds, then the camera will often just slowly close in on them.
So the Zoom,
honing in on that information and really paying attention to what they're saying instead of whatever happens in the background or any other.
Yeah, the important part is that that we all understand that as directors, we are directing the viewer's attention. And if we zoom in, or if we pull back, or if we boom up, or whatever we do with the camera movements, there has to be a reason why we're choosing to do that.
It all has to be intentional, yeah.
So if you're mimicking some scenes and you do it, then something is going to register in the back of your head, and you're going to see, okay, well, this is important, and they're talking about something that may benefit from me moving the camera in to what's happening, because I'm bringing the attention, I'm bringing the viewer's experience into this particular part of the dialogue. So if we're not doing, if the thing is unimportant, it's not really required to go into that close of a distance to the characters. So it's only about understanding what your tools are going to be able to convey to the audience in the end. you know, in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll do this sort of exercise again later on in the semester, guys. And this one will be more about like blocking as well as everything else. We'll try to find a scene that doesn't have as much movement but has more blocking, so we can kind of capture that. Mel did pretty good with that in this one.
What do you mean less movement? There wasn't a lot of movement in that scene, was there?
No, less camera movement, more blocking, like character movement.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we'll be focused more on that next time. That's what I mean. But yeah, I thought that was a good, very good tips about it, to make sure you always like recognize why a camera's moving or what. And that's why it was good to watch that movie and kind of see what was happening in that scene, so we all kind of understand what's going on.
And I feel like it also helps, like in the future when you watch movies and you see a specific camera movement, like, okay, what is this conveying? What is this trying to make me feel? It really does make you think. Hopefully it doesn't make the movie boring for you, but like it makes you like understand how that emotion is coming across.
What's that noise?
Oh, I'm eating crackers. Sorry.
Ah.
Rude.
Right.
I haven't eaten since lunch, okay? Just snacking on something.
Yeah, does anybody have any comments or questions about that before we move on to more tips and techniques for cinematography? We already got a few, but I was going to read out a few that I wrote down from stuff we watched.
No, I really like the advice. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm going to share my screen then. So these are just some I found on websites and Reddit and stuff, but I thought this was a cool, it kind of shows you like how they get those, they're going to fall off the building. Especially in older movies, they do this a lot where they have like a flat 2D space and they have them hanging off maybe a side that's barely off the ground. And there's, you know, some kind of mattress or padding at the bottom where they'll fall onto. And it looks like they fall off the entire building, but really it's just out of frame. And it gives makes the audience feel like they're falling off of something tall, but really they're not. What else we got? I thought whip pans were really cool, like showing the different ways you can utilize these. This girl did like 2 or 3 of these. I thought it was really cool to see how you can use it. And there's so much blur and motion going on that you don't really notice when it's a cut. As long as you end it on one cut going to the left and you start the other one starting off in the middle going to the left, and then you can do that.
Well, it's more of a transition.
That's so cool.
That's what I mean, not a cut, right?
Yeah, it would be fun to like do learn how to do different kinds of shots and things. I feel like it'll be even better. Like I feel like we could do that more with hands-on.
Yeah, if we could practice stuff like that, that'd be cool.
So to get back into this shot here with the she's throwing and then the other girl on the other side she's catching. This technique is used a lot in movies where they do like one shot, you know, where they're just following the camera around, the character around, all in one take. They use this a lot. Like what movie? I think it was like 1819, that war movie where they did it all in one take, supposedly. They use this technique a lot in there. They'll find a good place to put a transition from one scene to the next, because
you barely even notice that it's an actual transition, and they do it on purpose.
Yeah, they're very good at that.
At transitions and like hiding it.
Yeah, the more you can hide it, like when it goes behind a wall and it looks like it's just going to the next room, but really it's a transition or a cut, or doing something like this where they're using the same starting point and ending point to make it look like it's a seamless transition. So that
I like that. I would love to learn how to do shots, like complicated shots like that, because I find like once you've learned how to do complicated shots, you can do easy shots almost. You know what I'm saying? Almost, it's like the more you
I also
think it's more the opposite.
I also didn't want to start off doing complicated first because, well, first of all, the framing and all that, but also it's just because those shouldn't be used as often as just, you know, normal.
No, I think practicing the basics are good, but once you've got like that, like, you know, you could do all the basics. When you start doing the complicated shots, it takes the basics up to the next level. I mean, if you can't even do
here's the problem with
what he's saying is don't overuse those special shots, because then it just loses all its meaning. That's kind of what he's trying to say.
Well,
Sorry, Brian,
the-
go ahead.
Oh yeah, but practicing something and overusing it are two different things. You just
Well, yeah.
practice stuff.
The
Yeah.
thing is about getting all these complicated shots is that once you get good at it and you start doing it, you never go back to the basics because you're always going to try to make things way more complicated than they have to be. So that's the thing about.
Is that what happened to Michael Bay?
Yeah, like you just can't do a normal shot. It's always got to be like a
He just wanted to
helicopter
look
or-
cool in every movie.
I just feel the same way too. I'm complicated. I want complicated shots. I ain't going easy. Go big or go home.
I think
Here's
that,
the
yeah,
thing, guys.
there's a
Like,
time and a
here's
place.
the whole point is those
Honestly.
more complex shots, they're for a purpose. They shouldn't be just to look cool. Because a moviegoer can tell, like Michael Bay movies, when it's just there to look cool, it loses its impact. It loses its wow factor.
Especially
Because-
the more it's repeated within the same project. or
Exactly.
movie.
Yeah, but like if
So,
that's
like-
what you're known for, then like you know what I mean? Like everybody like
No,
is
I'm not
known
talking
for,
about
it
just
works
being
for 'em.
known for. I'm talking about like if you want to get an emotion across and you use a bunch of complex shots, it's going to like water down the emotion when you actually use that complex shot in the movie because it's not going to seem as impactful because you've seen a bunch of like cool shots and like, oh, another one. And it's also not, it's going to feel more not as natural as opposed to when it's like, okay,
If it stands out as a cool shot, it's going to draw people out of the store.
exactly. It needs to seem seamless in a way that like, holy crap, that brought a new emotion. That was a cool shot. It had an impact. It wasn't just a bunch of cool shots or the same cool shot over and over and over again.
So it like takes the audience's attention away from like the story and just
Exactly.
focuses on the
Yeah, I mean like you know,
trick
good
shots.
placement's gonna be good too. But I mean, you know, I don't know, I guess like there's always
Everything is about balance, just like everything in life. If you're telling a story and you want that emotion to come across, you need to focus. That's what's the big issue with some directors. It's like they focus on cool shots, but does that serve the story? Does it serve the emotional moment that you're having? Not every cool shot is gonna work for an emotional scene or a sad, like happy scene or just any kind of scene. So you can use them. We're not saying like don't use them barely ever. We're just saying like pick your moments. Don't get overly excited, like Brian said, because it will kind of cheapen your movies a little bit and it will lose the impact that you're trying to get.
Yeah, but to add to that point, like I would also like to learn these things.
Yeah,
I'm not saying
definitely.
I would like to learn.
We're just
I would
we're just
definitely like
talking
to
about
practice
balance.
and learn these things. It's kind of cool. So I just wanted to start out with like the more basic stuff first to get that down. But here's another
I just
trick.
know that we all get excited, so I wanted to be the bad cop and like depress everyone. But you can learn the cool shots.
I agree.
Just
I
everything in
agree with
balance.
Priscilla on that note, but I mean like I see both sides. Like I think that overusing is good, but like at the right time and right place, and you're just like, oh, that was a cool shot. Yeah, that's what you want.
Yeah, and if you overuse it, it's gonna be like, yeah, that again.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean,
I
like,
get what you mean.
anytime,
I get
that's
what
when
you
you
mean.
start having to come up with new
Well,
stuff.
it has its place. All those cool shots have its
It's also cool when you can like kind of figure
Yeah.
out your own.
Yeah, it's like when you have this
like a
old
new
joke that you
thing. It's
love,
also pretty cool.
but you
Yeah.
told it 3 times to the same person. That's when you need to find a new audience. Don't change the joke. You see what I did there? No.
Yeah. Let's go.
But all right,
That was the
here's
one
another
thing-
trick they use. Like whenever you see someone's getting knocked out, they're usually going backwards and then just reversing it in the edit so that they're not going to damage the lens or the camera or whoever's face it is or whatever. They're usually going backwards or they're going very slow and speeding it up. So it's either speed ramp or it's reversing it. So I thought that was cool to look at.
Oh yeah, that is cool.
I want to learn how to do a bunch of stuff and like act in a bunch of cool shots. But yeah, emotional stuff's cool. Cool shots are cool. Everything's cool. I mean, like,
Yep.
yep. Like, yeah.
Yeah, Sarah. I
As
don't
you
mean to
guys
be
can
a
see in
downer.
this,
It
it's
is
like you
cool,
gotta
and it
also
has.
pay attention to where the light's coming from, and you
Yeah.
want to make sure that the lighting is in the actual shot's gonna match up with the lighting of whatever you're
I
gonna
like you playing
post.
devil's
So they knew
advocate.
they wanted to put it in front of a moonshot, so they're making the light be the moon, and then they're just like bringing down the brightness. But that will give the effect that you want, so that it's not the light's coming from the front when really the moon's in the background, and it doesn't make any sense in the edit.
Yeah, that's like when you get the lighting wrong on like Photoshop.
And
Oh
you can,
yeah.
and you can totally tell, and like
What
the
if it's a
Yeah.
shadows
different
are on the other
background and the
side.
lighting is completely different?
Yeah, the shadows are on the
Photoshop-
other side where the sun is, but they're putting something else in the foreground that makes it look like it's the opposite.
I think Kanye West got hit for that. He did a music video with Kim Kardashian, and she was like on the motorcycle, but they're like her hair's flowing the separate, her hair's going in a different direction than where the bike is
That's why it
going.
looks so
man.
weird. I couldn't tell at the
Yeah.
time. Like, what is it about this that looks
Yeah.
odd?
I saw something. It was on an Instagram thing where the girl was like, walking upside down, but really it was just the camera flip. But her hair was hanging, so you could tell that she was just upside down on the ceiling or on the regular floor. Because she was like making it look like she was crawling with her hands across the counter and had her feet up on the.
Oh, I saw that one. That was.
Oh, you did see it, yeah. So
Yeah.
you could tell because of where her hair went that she was not hanging upside down. And that was just like another speed.
Well,
bump.
ladies and long
Or like
hair
another-
dudes, put your hair up for those scenes.
So like with this kind of thing, it's also with the impact. Like when you see the camera move, but it kind of like does a little shake, you can see it feels like it's moving past the camera and making the camera shake. So you always want to be thinking about that stuff when you guys are doing any of these kind
That's
of.
cut, right? Like, cause it like instantly jumps to like the shot of her running away.
Yeah, because the point is
Yeah.
supposed to be that she's like speeding really
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah. I just wasn't sure if that was like one take or well, not one take. Not never mind.
Yeah, I find
It's
like,
just like the
it's
knife
cool.
throw.
So cool.
So they're
Like,
probably
it's
like
the
ending it
same-
right around somewhere right there in the middle, like right there. And then they're probably starting the
Ooh.
next take right around in the same area so that it looks like it's
Yeah.
there's no.
So where is it? Point with your finger. Whatever. I can't tell.
my
where
cursor.
in the frame? Yeah, the cursor. Thank you.
So
Yeah,
like
so-
right there, it's probably like right somewhere right here, right in the middle,
Okay.
just like that. Probably with her foot somewhere in the frame. That way they can have a reference, and then they just put part of her foot in the frame as she's running. Well, actually, no, they couldn't do that because she's.
Oh yeah, you can.
But
You
it's
can
probably
see.
like something
You
in the
can see
background, like
kind
a
of
tree
like.
or something, where they could figure out what, like this tree we're gonna stop, and then this tree we're gonna start, and then that way it goes seamlessly into each other when you put it together.
So how do you do that? Like you just put them next to each other and then you just do a
So the first take, you're gonna have her right there, and then you're gonna go to the right with the camera, and then
No,
the
no, that
second
makes sense.
take, you're
But
gonna
how
They
do
start
just do 2 takes, but they like make her run on the first one, and then they like make her run just a little farther on the other one.
No, I know, but then how do you tie them together in editing? Because that's
It's
spoilers.
a
It's
transition.
yeah.
It's a
You could buy transitions to go inside your editor that they'll actually give. I think there's one that's exactly what this is like you can just plug it in and you take the both ends from both clips and you just merge it in with the transition and then it does it for you.
Or if you're doing it manually, you can just kind of cut and speed up the last part if you want, and speed up the beginning of the next take, so that it kind of seamlessly goes into each other. Because there's so much movement, there's so much motion blur, you're not going to really notice. And that's the
Yeah,
whole-
when things are moving this fast, like hard cuts don't get noticed as much.
All right, thanks, Bobby. Have a good one.
Take care,
Like
guys.
anytime there's a lot of movement or blur, you can definitely hide some transitions in there for the next take. Or another trick people use is like they use foreground elements like a tree. You've seen this a lot in movies where they're following somebody and then they go past a tree, and then after they get past that tree, they're in a new scene or they're closer, and it's a new take. And so that tree was just used as a transition to kind of go to the next scene. All right. So a few techniques that this thing had is just like think outside the box, you know, don't get stuck in ways like what Sarah was saying, like try to do new things, try to be creative, even with things that are mundane and regular seeming, you can also make those creative in the way you shoot them or how you go about it.
Yeah, I've come up with a challenge, especially during this COVID, because people have been like really hard. Like, well, I have ideas and stuff, and people don't want to try them, and then that becomes challenging. So then you're constantly always like not being able to try things.
As an actor, are you saying you put up ideas as an actor and people don't want to try it?
The actor or filming or whatever, yeah, I'm having less of a problem now that I'm talking to you guys and like Daniel and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the past, it depends on the people, because some people are like not as
Yeah.
strange, or they get, you know what I'm saying? Like
Some people
yeah.
are so like stuck up and they think they are like the know-it-all. And I've been on sets like that
Yeah.
before, where it's like, you know, like when I'm not doing cinematography or I'm not doing directing or anything, and you know, I'll be like a, you know, a gaffer or you know, a grip or something, and I'll see some, I'll be like, hey, this might be a cool shot, and they kind of just blow me off, like, hey, like, you know, we're not gonna listen to you because you're just a grip. I hate that.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
me,
it's
like
like
if an actor has an idea for a shot, like I would try it. Like it might be
Yeah,
dope.
but isn't it also like the rule number one to not tell the director what to do unless you're an actor working with him? Like if you're part of the crew, isn't that like an
No,
unspoken?
there's a difference between suggesting and then stepping over your bounds and you know, making something out of, you know, if you suggest something like, hey, I think this would be a cool shot, you know, why not try it? But as far as like, there's a difference between, all right, so now you need to get the shot versus, hey, I
yeah,
think it'd be cool to get the shot. You know,
yeah,
there's
it's
a
like
difference.
Yeah, but like having, I don't know, maybe it's like independent productions are different. Everyone keeps saying, don't, if you work like and you're not like the assistant director or anything like that.
They
Try
say that to
it.
try to eliminate confusion. But the thing is, you got to think overall for the overall film itself. Like if you see something wrong and you know it's gonna be like, I go on a lot of sets and I keep my mouth shut a lot, but like I know I've been on so many sets and I'm like, yo, they're gonna have so much trouble in post because they're not getting enough coverage, or they're not getting, or they're crossing that, you know, they're breaking the 180 rule. And I'll just keep my mouth shut and let them figure it out. But
And how do you deal with like, have you ever had a case where the director was like mad at you for giving that suggestion, or?
no, because like I've it's never been. I know when to step of my, you know, the step, like just the hush hush. Like this film, I just
Mm.
this film I was just working with, like me and the director are actually friends. So anytime like I was like, yo, I would go to him. I'm like, hey Jeff, like this is a, you know, your actors are doing good, but I think they might need a little bit more this, that, and the other, and we'll talk about it. Because like
Got
I'm the
just
cinematographer, so like
knowing when you
I'm
have that.
sitting there and I'm watching it on camera. The performance, the director is watching it, and I, you know, I didn't have a client monitor. That was my fault. I didn't have a client monitor, but as a camera guy and a cinematographer, you're watching the performance on screen. So you're pretty much getting like, you're getting like even though it's like raw footage and it's not color graded yet, but you're still kind of getting an idea of what it's going to look like on screen. So like if you notice like, you know, the performance is kind of lagging on screen, because you know you can watch it, you know, in person off camera and be like, oh, it was good. But then when you go back in your editor and watch it, you're like, oh, it wasn't so good.
Yeah.
You know.
So I guess it's just about picking your moments and knowing when you have that freedom and when you don't.
Mm-hmm. But I would
Reading the
never,
room.
I would never cross with the director without talking to the director first, because I know, I'm pretty sure actors will get mad at that too. Like, oh, the director told me to do it this way, but then, you know, the cinematographer said to do it different way. You know what I mean? Like I you know, and then on top of that, a lot of it cross within each other. Like I had to talk to the director about it because I was framing up a scene and his blocking was like totally completely different from where I was going with it. So I was like, you know, you have the dialogue over here on this side of the kitchen as opposed to over there, because I'm trying to get away from that window.
Yeah.
And this, that,
So
and the
you're
other.
saying like you get to know the director first before you just go on to a set and you're like, hey dude, so
Well, if I don't know the director, I'm gonna let him make all whatever mistakes, which is the wrong, you know, it's kind of a douchebag answer, but you know, I'm not gonna, if it's like a
But it's
client.
that well, I kind of agree like with that, because I don't know. I feel like if it's a long form set where you're on there, like maybe it's a TV show or it's a multiple days thing, you can start to feel out the environment and see what's okay, what's not.
Yeah.
But if you don't know and you don't, I mean, your first time working with these people, then yeah, I would be the same way and keeping my mouth shut because you don't know if they're gonna get pissed. You don't know if they're gonna be like, you know what, you're off the set.
Yeah. And then on top of that, like I've been on sets where like I was like, oh, this isn't gonna be good. And then it came out great. Cause you never know what the overall end results are gonna be. So like, but with my experience, like I always try to like maybe throw some suggestions out and then you can take it or leave it. Like it is what it
Yeah.
is. Like if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I've just put it out there. And
Yeah.
it's good to have, another creative mind, intake. Like I'm working with my movie and my cinematographer for Kill Mary. Like and this is like I've said this in other meetings too. When you're directing, you're not just directing actors, and I'm just now learning this. You're not just directing actors, you're directing everybody else, and you're also directing your cinematographer as well. So like every now and then, like Stu is my cinematographer and I look up to him. I love him to death. He's the coolest guy. But every now and then I'll have to be like, Stu, let's get this shot over here. I'll throw some shots belong to me. Like, let's get this shot here. Like, this is one of those director shots that we have to have in the movie. But then everything else, I kind of have faith and let him do what he does. But I kind of have to. He's good at lighting the scene, but you kind of have to. You have to put him where the scene is. You have to put the cinematographer. You have to give him.
Well, yeah, because it's also
direction.
like it's your vision, and they're not gonna. No one's gonna know what's in your head exactly until
Exactly.
you show them.
Explain it. Yeah.
Also,
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify because we also don't want to give people like the wrong impression of just go on any set and suggest something if you think I have a good idea. I just didn't want people to go to the other extreme because sometimes people misunderstand. But I completely understand what you mean. If you feel like you've been there for a while and you read the room and you have the freedom to do so, it is, and you feel comfortable with it. Yeah, I feel like if you know, you know. But yeah, okay, I understand now. Because it was just like something that I was always like really afraid of. Like, oh, so you shouldn't do that, or they'll like fire you immediately or get mad or whatever. And then I heard of like people that did, and I was like, oh, okay, so.
I mean, I've been on sets where that sometimes the actors would be like, hey, well, why are we shooting it this way? And the director would be like, look, like you're just an actor, don't worry about it, and da 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 da. And I'm like, you don't tell them that. Like, no, like that's something, like because they could be right. They could be right, especially if you've had like an established actor that has been on bigger productions than you. Like if you're shooting with a big actor like I don't know, Trey Chaney or something like that, and he's like. You gotta assume, not assume, but you kind of have to like be prepared for some of these actors to know a little bit more than you. You know what I mean? Like if they're more established than you, because they've been on set, so they kind of learn. When I'm on set, like I've worked with cast members from The Wire and NBC news anchors and stuff like that, and they tell me, when in between takes, they chill and they talk to the other crew. They talk to the DP. They talk to the other, and they're always asking, like when I'm shooting, they're always asking me questions. They're like, hey, like why are you doing this? Why are we doing this? And I explain it to them. So they have a little bit of knowledge. You can't just like assume that your actors don't know anything, because sometimes they do.
The like humility and understanding of we are a team. We are working towards like this project together, and not letting your ego come.
And then as an actor, you kind of want to know this too, because you don't want them to make you look bad.
Yeah.
As they're going to get all your bad sides, your bad angles and stuff. You don't want that. You want to know what your good angles are. You want to know like, hey, like, you want the lighting to be good and stuff like that for your demo reel. So like, if you can kind of help them a little bit, maybe, to say, hey, like, look, I think maybe suggest, but I'm not going to say tell or demand, but like, we'll say, this is not.
No, I like the way you explained it. It actually clarified a lot. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
I think you explained it pretty. Yeah, I think you explained
it's also just a good tip in general for like any set you guys go on and any position. Just be careful, be aware of what you're allowed to, not allowed, but what you should talk about and what you shouldn't, what you should try to mention and not, and kind of try to get a feel for everything
Read the
before.
room and get a feel for
Yeah,
the place.
my latest challenge now is like the how different it is, because like if you're day calling, that's going to be the biggest challenge, because you don't even get a chance to really read the room before you're kind of thrown into the fray, versus like working and then getting to know somebody slowly and then giving an idea. That's going to be the best, you know, scenario, because then it gets a chance to know people, read the room and stuff. Because, you know, what works, you know, the timing for one director to mention something is not going to be the same with a different director,
Yeah.
because they have a completely different way of like doing things. So then that's where the challenge is set in.
Yeah. And that's where like it is also good for just to have a basic knowledge of like trying to understand people and read people and understand certain social cues, which I am learning because I have like bad social anxiety. So it just comes from like sometimes just be quiet, observe, look, okay, so what's that dynamic? What's this situation? And do mostly do your job. Like go there, do your job, do the best you can do. Show yourself with your work, and I feel like that will draw attention.
Definitely, that works the best.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you hit like, for me, the biggest thing is weird roadblocks, because like most of the time you could be like smooth as butter, and it's just like, you know, things just can be odd. And even if you're good at reading a certain, like there's so many different types of people, so it's like you need to really learn,
which is why, like, you know,
different social cues are. Because you might
professional,
know social cues with an entire group of 3 different groups of people, 5 different groups of people, but it only takes one group of people. You don't know what the social cues
yeah,
are.
which is why
Yeah.
professionalism should
Right.
be the default always when you're on set. And if someone starts giving you that freedom, you take a little bit, but just always know you're there to do a job. You can maybe get a beer with them afterwards, but right now work is work. Let's focus on that situation. Does that sound too boring?
No, I think I agree with that 100%. That's the best way to be. And it's just been, yeah, COVID has made things a little bit odd, because a lot of people have been more on edge than usual. But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is a job if you're hired onto somewhere. So you know, always be aware of like that when on
Oh,
set.
yeah.
Just want to bring like your A game every time. But yeah, like because I've seen sets where, you know, you'll see people joking around and then someone will come and joke and they'll just all look at them like, because like they're used to joking around, but they're not used to that guy joking, or they're not used to his sense of humor or whatever. So you also have to be aware of that kind of thing when on set.
Yeah, which is
It's
usually
like,
why, honestly, I stay quiet most of the time. But then, like, people have, yeah. So for my challenge too, is people have been trying to get me more out of my shell, and that has not served me the best.
gotcha.
So yeah,
All right.
I don't know what to say. In the right groups, like you guys, yes, it serves me well. Like it just depends.
And that's why you can always just politely, if you're there to do a job, you can just be like, oh, I'm busy, sorry. Or, oh, I just not really into talking about that as much, but maybe well, some other time. You know, always polite and professional.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think there's a
sorry.
way to like kind of go about it. Like it's just different. Just depends on the people, because
Yeah,
everyone's
hard.
dynamic with each other will also be different. But like a group dynamic is also different than just an individual dynamic with one person on set. So it just depends.
Yeah, and I honestly, the goal for me is like when you get to have that dynamic where you get to build with people, the same people, then it's awesome, because you understand each other's humor and people have more room to be creative and stuff. That's like the ideal situation, but you're not always gonna get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's like the most fun.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And then hopefully people like you, and yeah.
Want to work with you again. So yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So another tip they have on here is like motion in the frame. Try to keep things feeling alive. Brian was talking about background. Like, don't just focus on just your subjects. You want like background actors to maybe walk back and forth if it's supposed to be a busy street or a city, or if there's supposed to be a coffee shop. There should be some stuff happening in the background. Everything shouldn't be directed just on the foreground and the subjects just because they're the main focus. There should also be stuff happening to make it feel alive and real. So always keep that in mind. And always, if you're on a low budget, keep in mind that camera movements will probably take the most time, and it's depending on what kind of camera movement you want. if you want a crane shot, make sure it's in the budget, and that you put the time for it, and you know that like you can't use those crane shots all over the place, but maybe like once in the shot that you really want it here, you can use it there, and then it really pops out in the movie anyway. So always be aware of like what you will realistically be able to do with the budget and the time and the schedule you have.
Also, here's a good one. Give yourself enough time. Like, give yourself enough time. If you're the cinematographer and the producers are coming at you and they're saying, how, this is a question that comes up that I always have trouble with. How many days do you need to shoot this? And for people like us or indie filmmakers or low budget filmmakers and people with not that much of experience, they'll say things like, oh, well, I can shoot it over the weekend. I hate that. Stop like the 2-day shoot thing. It's like, this isn't a 48-hour film festival. Like, give yourself some time. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what happened on the shoot we just did over the weekend. It was only 9 pages. And they're like, oh, it's only 9 pages. But I'm like, that's 9 pages. Yeah, but I still need, like, I wanted to use my jib, I wanted to use my sliders, I wanted to use this, and that stuff takes time, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of action to cover.
Right.
You know, don't just assume that, oh, we just put a camera down and shoot. No, we, like you guys were discussing now, we need to get camera movement. We need to discuss it. We need to pick out the right camera movements and stuff like that. And before you know it, like you eat. And you guys went over scheduling and stuff like that too before in other classes. Like, and for this one, for this particular shoot, I did make a schedule just to have a blueprint to follow, and it was beneficial, but everything just like, we just went over schedule like so many times on so many things, specifically the outside stuff. And then we had to pack up and go back inside and start all over again. So
Right.
give yourself some time. And now that I think about it, I was like, well, if we had like 4 days, all the stuff we shot on Saturday, we could have just dedicated to the outside and we didn't have to come back inside. We could have just been outside, done. And then the next day we just shot the inside stuff. And then the third day we'll pick ups. But don't try to shoot everything in a weekend. You know, give yourself the time.
Don't you have to balance it out with like a budget, because like if you have need another day, you have to get the actors back on set and then pay them and everything.
Well, yeah, then it goes back to what I was saying earlier, when you're casting an actor and you're like, what's your availability? And they tell you, oh, I'm available whenever you need me. And then
True.
you make a schedule, they're like, well, I'm not available on Friday, you know, or whatever day. You know,
Yeah.
everything changed. That's where the difficulty comes in, balancing the budget, balancing the actors, balancing the schedules and stuff. Like, I mean, I'm actually getting good experience now doing all this stuff that I've been doing now. Like, I'm used to like doing the cinematography, doing the sound work, but this new stuff I'm doing now as a director is like, and I've mentioned it before, I say it over and over again, it's exhausting. It's very exhausting, because like when you're the focal point for everybody to call for every last thing, everybody's calling you for this, that, and the other, and you don't have an assistant director to be the middleman for that, like it gets hectic and frustrating and on all this. And yeah, so
Yeah, it's a lot.
But
It's definitely a lot.
if they're like asking you how much time will it take, is that like a budgetary kind of pressure thing, or are they just flat out
budgeting
asking?
and scheduling and just kind of figuring out a general
yeah,
everything.
producers
Okay.
they don't understand, like executive producers, they don't understand the craft of it. So they're asking you that question because they kind of want a general idea of when you're going to be finished and put out the final product. They like to make deadlines. So if you tell them 5 days, they'll give you like a 2-day grace period after that. And then they want to see like a rough cut on the 7th day, you know, so they can push it out, make a trailer for it, and do whatever they want with it. You know, that's what their intent is. They don't really care. Like if you tell them 10 days, okay, 10 days is what you're telling me. And that's because they just want to set things in stone as fast and quickly as possible.
Yeah, and they also don't want to hear like, you know, if they feel like it's going to take 7 days and you tell them 15, they're going to be like, why? What?
But if you're like, well, if I tell them in 2 days, they're gonna love me. You tell them 2 days, and
No,
you
no,
don't
I'm
get
not saying do
everything.
that. I'm just saying like
Yeah.
from their perspective, they're also trying to hear how long you're feeling you need as a cinematographer.
That's why I say give yourself the time, because like it's your craft, you know. Give yourself the time. If they ask you how many days you take, like tell them how many days you need.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like as you go along, you just get better at those things, and then I find that you're gonna biff it and to just not take it too hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing is like I keep telling myself that I'm like, you know what, that's gonna happen sometimes, and you just go, oh wait, well, that didn't work out, and you just aim and take another shot and learn from it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's my best advice, like thoughts on that. But yeah, because it ends up being a lot. But you never
Yeah.
grow if you don't stretch yourself a little bit, if that makes any sense. And then
Mhm.
as you're stretching yourself, you're more likely to make mistakes, but that's why you want to do it slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'll always get better at like with all the budgeting and the timing, you'll start to realize how long and how much it's going to cost and all this other stuff while you're going about doing these things. So it's also good to try to keep that in mind from the beginning to the end, just to figure out like, wait a minute, how many days did this take and how long did I think this was going to be? And then it actually was this long. And I'm noticing that with this group. I was like, some of these things I feel like are going to be really quick. And then it's like, oh, wow, this took up the longest time that anything else has taken up. So it really just
No,
depends.
that's yeah, and then once you start having like an accurate representation of how long everything takes, like at the beginning, then it's great. And you're like, okay, this takes this long. And then when you get it, then you leave your room to say something takes you 15 days, but you get it done in 7 this time. You're like, oh, well, I just beat my record by like half.
Yeah. Because now
But
you're
so it's
better, you're more used to it, and you can
yeah,
set
the wide side and watch yourself get really fast at doing things and efficient at them. Because the more you do it, the more efficient you get. And
Mhm.
then it just kind of like fixes itself.
Yeah.
Strangely enough.
So another thing they recommend on this sheet is to experiment with lenses. They say like try slapping a wide lens for a close up, long lens for establishing shot. It might only work for that doesn't work for everything. It only works for the story you're telling, but experimenting never hurts. You could find that you really like something that you never thought of even using before because it just doesn't go with these general rules that we're learning about or whatever. So, always try experimenting and just testing things out, especially if, like Brian was saying, if somebody has a cool idea and you have time, just try it out. Maybe you'll like it in the editing room. Maybe you'll put it in. Maybe it's better than
I
the other
agree.
thing you're
Yeah.
doing. So
No,
I
it's
always
cool.
try to say be open minded. If you're the one in charge, be open minded about everybody and be also aware of timing because of how much time stuff takes, time constraints. So, be able to hear somebody out without just dismissing them right off the bat and be able to also tell them politely, like, that's that might be cool, but it's not going to work because we don't have time. But at least they feel like you've heard them out and you didn't just dismiss them by like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just an actor. You're just a grip or whatever. So,
Oh, I agree. Like if you have the time to hear somebody out, definitely do it. If there's a very specific reason that you can't hear somebody out right now, say later.
yeah.
That works very well. So
Mhm.
sometimes you're just like sometimes it's not even just time, like you might just not have the capacity at that moment. You're like you're got too many things going on in your brain that you have to organize or whatever, and you're just thinking like that right now because you don't have the I have to like you know what I'm saying? Like it's not always
Yeah.
like I might have 10 minutes. This 10 minutes is my cool down time before I
Because now you're thinking about the next shot or you're thinking about the next line reading
yeah.
or whatever you have to do. Yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that's
lot.
what I mean. Sometimes you're just like not right now.
Right.
Like, okay, and then you just have to kind of respect that and wait and just trust that, and maybe mention it later.
All right, Jorge, have a good one. Yeah, so the next thing they talk about is like having the right gear for the job, get familiar with all types of cameras and lenses. We just learned a little bit about anamorphic lenses and versus spherical and like saw a little bit of that. And just kind of like the different types of cameras and what they bring and like different if it's full frame or if it's what is it called, 3/4 CMOS, whatever kind of camera you have, it's going to be different than the other types of cameras, and there's different things going on within way it processes things and the way it looks. And maybe even though these two cameras have the same settings, this Nikon and this Canon are going to look different just because the way it processes or something with the lens or the way it sees something is different. So it's going to look different, even though it's technically the same. On the surface, it looks like it would be the same, but it turns out different. So it's good to like look all these things up. One of these semesters we'll look up equipment and kind of delve a little deeper into these like different things and just kind of get a general sense of what different cameras and stuff bring to the table. But for now, just keep in mind like things are going to look different. Lighting's going to look different depending on what kind of light it is. You know, cameras, lenses, all this stuff's going to look different depending on what you have. So the more familiar you can get with it, whether by looking it up online or if you're able to go on sets and you see that these people have these different pieces of equipment that you don't have, you can kind of see like what it does and how it looks compared to what you have. So I just keep
Yeah,
that.
if it looks sometimes like when something looks different, it's not always necessarily a bad thing, but you do need to give yourself time to adjust. Because even positive changes take a hot minute or like seeing something different. So that's always challenging.
Yeah, always give yourself time to learn these things because that's why I set this whole thing up. Like I want to learn it, but I want to learn it where I can actually focus on everything and discuss it with
Yeah.
you guys and figure it out as I go instead of just trying to cram it into 3 months. It's too much information to try to like do it too quickly. So you always want to give
Oh, I
yourself
agree.
time to
This
figure
is
everything
better,
out.
and and then from there you never stop learning, and that's kind of like I find for me why I picked film.
Mm-hmm. Because you can always like go on a set and there's something completely different and it's very
It's an
you have to
innovation.
figure out a problem and you have to like solve it in a different way than you've ever done before because it's a different location, it's a different crew, you have a different camera, maybe it's a bigger crane and now you have to figure out how we're going to fit this in this space. Whatever it is, there's always these different issues with every set, so it's cool to see. And even if everything's exactly the same somehow, the script and everything's still going to be different, so you still are having like a different it's going to be different than your other set that you were on before, no matter what. So it's really cool. The next tip is know your script. If you're the cinematographer or a camera crew, if they give you the script, whatever position you have, I would just recommend reading it, knowing it, because depending on your position, or even if you're just a production assistant, it's always good to know the script so you can kind of help out wherever someone needs it. What scene are we on? If someone asks that, you'll be able to know. You'll be able to know what's happening in that scene. You'll be able to know like anything that anybody needs. You'll be able to know. And if you're the DP or your cinematographer, whatever you want to call yourself, if you don't know the script, then you're not going to know what kind of shots are needed. You're not going to know what kind of what kind of lenses and stuff is going to be the best for that story. So you're kind of just going to go in, and it's very creative and technical. It's not just creative on the set. You can do whatever you want. It's kind of, you have to know what's going on in the script and think about it in a way that makes sense to the story of why the camera, like Jorge was saying, why the camera's moving the way it is, and what is happening and why, instead of just going in and trying to capture it all.
Yeah, it's the more you learn, the more you know. It's one of those like there's always more to learn. It like just opens, and it's fascinating and fun, and yeah, I agree to try to learn as
But
much as you
definitely
can.
like from a cinematographer's perspective, like I've heard a lot of people from this semester and just people that I've talked to and from the past say that a lot of cinematographers just get to the set and they just don't even know anything about the story. They're just like, oh, I don't know, I just thought I was gonna shoot, I make some really cool, that do really cool shots, and they're just thinking about getting really cool shots and really pretty things looking, but it doesn't really work, especially if like the story's not supposed to be as fluid and perfect as the way they're trying to make it. So like they're trying to do very smooth shots, but the story calls for maybe something a little less smooth, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like there's different ways to go about doing it. Maybe a smooth shot would work, but you always need to know the story so you can kind of discuss it and figure it out instead of just showing up to set and trying
Well,
to do it out there.
for me, like I actually took a project where I didn't read the script, but it was kind of like the cinematographer they had originally got didn't want to do the project anymore. So they came to me last minute and was like, hey, we would like for you to do the project. So like I really didn't have time to read the script. And it became like the joke on set, like the cinematographer didn't read the script. So like my way of approaching that was like I would always go, all right, so what's going to happen here? And they would describe it. And I would do a dry run. Let me see like where you guys are going to be at. And then I would just like walk around them with a camera and just like take some pictures to see what kind of shots would work out. What would look good. But I think what really helped me overall is that I started off filmmaking as an editor. That was like the first title I took on was editor. So like the best cinematographers are editors. And it's not the other way around. Because cinematographers don't, unless the cinematographer is willing to step in the editing room and take on that role as an editor, like they really don't know what's going to happen in the editing room or otherwise. They just know, oh, close up, light, 180-degree rule, but it's more to it than just that, because like it's pacing, it's like blocking, pacing, beats, when to cut, when not to cut, when to have an extremely long shot. So if you're a cinematographer, you might think like, oh, well, I don't need all of these shots. I didn't read the script, but this is what's happening. I don't need all these shots. But then you get in the editing room and the editor's pissed off because like, dude, I need, I need these close-ups or this or that. Yeah. So that's what really, really helped me with that particular situation where I didn't read the script, was because I knew as an editor, I was like, I'm going to piss somebody off I'm going to piss me off. If I was editing this, I would be mad. So I knew like, I need these shots. I need this shot. But not every cinematographer has that mindset or an editor's mindset. They just kind of like, oh, well, we don't have to get all these shots. We can do it all in one shot, or we can do this, or we can do that, So
and another problem with that is they're just trying to get coverage some of the times when they're just like, oh, we covered it, we got the scene. But they're not looking for any like creative ways to get like, like you're saying, like if there's no way to like, what about a close-up? What about a extreme close-up just in case? And that's where, if you have the time, the thing with experimenting with things comes into play, where you can try to figure out, well, would this work? What if we show an extreme close-up of her lips while she says this? Might not use it, but it's always good to have more than less, especially once you get into the editing room. Because once you get into editing, it's like you feel like you're missing a bunch of stuff, especially if you only shot for coverage. Ryan saying like it's rough, especially if there's something you didn't notice on set and you have like a take of something and it was good on set, like Brian actually said this, but then you get into the editing and it's like, oh crap, this, I didn't see that the boom pole was in it, or I didn't see, there's a cord running from the background, whatever it is. There's always like these problems that you don't really notice as much until you get into the editing and you're seeing it frame by frame and you're like, oh my God. And there's ways to edit around it, but it's always better to just get more coverage than less if you're on set and you're able to.
I agree, definitely. And it is cool. I find like, what you're saying about like being able to have the editor's mindset as well. Like I find that like when you've done, like having done a storyboard and like, even if it's like you're not the best at something, understanding like the basics of stuff will make everything else better. Script writing will be better, cinematography will be better, because you start to be able to tie everything together. But you need to keep investing. Like it takes a long time to learn every little piece, and that's just the basics of every little piece. You're not even like good,
not even delving deep into it. Yeah
that's what I mean. Like you just know.
But that's why I like learning a little bit of everything, just to have a general sense of where
it makes sense. It all ties together, and then when you have a generalized sense of like a little bit of everything, and then you could really delve into like a couple areas or something, or one area, or whatever you can choose to do, and learn a lot more. But it's awesome.
Right. And it's also good to know, because if you ever get a job on especially independent projects, sometimes they'll be like, we wanted they don't really know exactly what the jobs are supposed to do. So it's like they say, oh, we wanted an assistant director, but then they really wanted you to do assistant directing, maybe like screen supervising and, production manager or something. They want you to do like so many things in one. And if you don't know what those other things are entailing, it's really hard to figure out what they need from you or what's missing from the set, really. So it's always good to know.
Yeah. But you also like the only way to learn is to like you said, like learn some theory, and then you also need you need to mix them both. Because
Mhm.
if you only do theory and you're too scared to like screw up, you will not ever grow,
Right.
because you'll be too scared to take a risk or a chance, and you won't, or you'll grow very, very, very slowly. You got to mix the two. Like, I'm not saying going completely blind either. That's dumb.
Right.
Somewhere in between, like learn as much as you can about something, and then just learn and then listen and be like, oh, what do you, and then be able to ask, what exactly do you need?
Yeah, that's
And
what I
most,
like, reading about it, discussing it, watching a video on it, and then hands-on practice. It all makes
I agree. And and again, I find like most people that know exactly what they need, they're going to tell you, I need this, that, and this.
Mhm.
And that works the best.
All right. So the next thing is managing time wisely. So that's the other thing to this whole everything. If you can't manage your time wisely, you're going to think that you could shoot it in a weekend when it's 9 pages or it's 15 pages. And you're like, well, it's all in one room. So, but it doesn't work that way. So really start to figure out like a general sense of how long things take. Um, talk to people. If you don't know yourself, I would talk to people that have done shoots. Like if I have a shoot that I feel like might be similar to something Brian's done before, I can be like, hey, how long did this take you guys? Just to get a sense of like maybe figuring out a timeline if I have no clue. And there's also, there's plenty of videos online that talk about this kind of thing where you can see like how long each thing generally takes, especially if you're new, and always account for more time if you're new and you've never done something before and you're trying to do it. Always add an extra few hours or even a day if you can, because you might get there and think that something's going to be really easy. I do this a lot. I think something's going to be really easy, and then it's like, oh man, this is not easy at all. I thought it was going to be, but it's a lot more difficult than I originally thought it would be. So just
Yeah, I
manage the
agree.
time.
That's happened to me a lot. And then I go, oh, that's cool. Because I get kind of like, first I get discouraged, and then I get excited.
Same. Same.
Yeah,
Okay.
right? Because you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, fuck. But then you're like, wait, this is what I'm looking for. When you come back alive, and you're like, yes, challenge. This is where I need to go.
Yeah.
I'm so silly. But yeah, no, that's fun. And why, again, film's super innovative. So if you have that mindset where you love learning and you love growing and you love connecting with people, it's beautiful. It's not beautiful when things get crunchy and go badly, because then you just sit at home and you're like, I fucked that up and it is my fault. And you just sit there sad.
Yeah.
And then you get over it and you're like, okay, won't do that again. How do I fix this? Yeah. I don't know if have you guys ever like done that, or you just like, damn. No?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool.
All right, I'm gonna move on. So the next thing is mixing color temperature. Like we've seen this in a lot of Hollywood movies. They'll have different colors that really pop out and bring to attention different things in the frame. Maybe they'll have a character with like a red light on them while the rest of the background's blue, or they'll be in a green room and it'll be like someone's in a very dark contrasted like shadow or a different color, or a different color green or whatever. And they have different ways to mix these things to make it look cool and interesting, and also hopefully to tell the story. Like I think in the scene we just showed, the Minority Report, that scene, it was very dark, but they seemed to be pretty bright. Like I felt like the rest of the scene was a little darker, a little more dull, but they were a little more colorful and it was a little more warm the closer we got in with them, because they were a little more orange compared to the background, which is a little more blue. So be aware of like different lighting and things that cause color, and be aware of different colors that make things pop out, make things look cool. That's all for that. Some of the ones I have written down is just use foreground to add production quality and depth. You're looking at a 2D screen, so you don't want it to look like it's flat. Adding foreground elements usually can make it really feel that 3D element. Having background elements and foreground elements can really add depth to your scene. So always try to keep that in mind. That's why you have like production designers that go around the set. Production designers and like set dressers and stuff like that go around and like put things in the set in the frame that'll make it pop out, or it won't be noticed, hopefully, like it won't draw attention as much as the actual subject that you're trying to shoot, but it does add depth to the scene and make it feel more alive or like it's a real place instead of like you're watching a 2D screen, which a lot of very low budget independent films kind of lack. I feel like they always like if you watch some where they're just walking along a road, it's very flat. Or they're walking along a sidewalk and they're just shooting it from the side, and it's very flat because there's nothing happening in the frame besides them walking, and it can get kind of boring. So you want to make sure to try to keep things foreground elements, background elements, just to bring it all together and make it adds a little more quality and makes it seem more high budget, even if it's not. I also say like we learned about this leading lines, like if you are on a road and you're looking down at your subject, the lines lead to them, so it leads the audience's eyes to that subject a lot easier. So they say use those, and it adds a lot of professional. It looks really good if used right. If overdone, it starts to get annoying. But just like anything else, you want to be very you want to make sure that it actually has a purpose and it's not just in there to, oh, I heard leading lines are good, so I'm going to do 100 roads in this film. Unless that's what it calls for, don't even try to have leading lines. But if you can find leading lines, like a building or something leading into that subject, it could make a really cool and pretty shot. So keep that in mind. Symmetry in shots can be really good too. You'll see a lot of films start off at like they're showing the ceiling of a building that's very symmetrical. It starts in the middle, it's very high up, and then it curves down in on itself. And then they'll start at the top and move down into their subject. And that adds the very symmetrical look to it, where the subject's in the center of the frame and there's equal parts on both sides. Very pretty to look at. Mel says she just wanted to bring up, I mentioned orange and blue. Overused color makes some blockbuster films. Yeah, I agree. YouTube videos too, like they use orange and blue all the time in the background. A lot of these tips and stuff that we're watching, a lot of the channels are using the same colors in the background. So it's also good to keep in mind that you can change things up and do something different. Try different things. Don't just do what everyone does, because yeah, it might look pretty, but at a certain point, like Mel's saying, like you just kind of get sick of it as an audience. So
Well,
it's also important. What?
the thing is with the orange and blue, those are the most commonly used tones because the orange is more or less closer to skin tones, and then the blue is more or less closer to moonlight and daylight. So that's why they're used more or less constantly. But then when you go into like weird colors like purple or whatever color you could think of, it gets kind of unnatural looking and it gets weird. So like if you're doing like a sci-fi, then you would maybe consider going off those colors. But if you're doing like a romantic comedy or a
No, we're
romance,
talking about like YouTube videos though.
well, even in YouTube videos, like then you're shooting a YouTube video, blah blah blah, in the background it looks like a club. If you want it to look like a club, but then it looks weird. If you've ever been in a club that has no music and no people, it's weird because you have all these lights going and there's nobody there.
I just feel like either way, whether it's orange, whether it's purple, whether it's blue, like if they use the same colors and it just looks kind of boring sometimes, or it just looks like I wonder why they're always using the same colors.
Because you've been conditioned to being used to seeing it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But I also feel like there's ways you can, I don't know. I feel like it's also not just like orange and blue. It's like the tone of the orange and the blue that they always use. I've seen a bunch of them use like the same. It's always in the background, so it's not really their skin. Like they're a little more orange, yeah, but the background has like some random orange light, like a lamp, and then the rest of it's all blue.
Especially in like the late 2000s, they would like oversaturate to make the skin look even more orange.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would a lot. So yeah, I definitely agree that it can be used well, and it doesn't always have to be like a bad thing or boring. But I also think like depending on, I don't know, I think maybe people are like copying, like, oh, that looks good, I'm gonna do that too, and then they do that too, like exactly to that, and it gets kind of old at seeing it after seeing it like 5 times. It's like, oh, that looks cool the first time, and then it's like, oh, that again, that again, that again, and then it gets old. So I think there's different levels that you can also do of saturation, like she was saying. Like there's different ways and combinations you can do with orange and blue. There's a lot of different oranges and a lot of different blues, so it doesn't always have to be the same type.
I think it's just about what's popular. Like they think, oh, that's popular on YouTube. This guy has a bunch of views. I'll do the same thing. So it's just like fads and stuff. I don't think there's anything like too deep about it. I think it's just like, oh, that looks cool. Yeah.
Fads are cool, but like I would say never give up like your original. If you have an original idea for a fad, yeah. I mean, go for fads. Fads are great for like doing quick things and like say doing like a COVID video because of the COVID. You know what I mean? Like it's applicable and relevant. So I'm not saying going along with fads is bad either. I think that both originality is good and also fads can be fun because again, it's like being part of like the flow.
Yeah, I think it's good to like know, like that's why we're learning all these things. Like if I didn't think that you should do anything similar to anyone else, I wouldn't.
Yeah, we're not saying like don't.
But
do
I was
it
just being like, I was just saying, like,
No. Just be aware. Just be aware that this is a thing that's common. And you know, many things are common because they work, and they work, and maybe they're easier. But just, you know, to be aware that you can do other things too.
Right.
Yeah, but I feel like it's you know, learning what works most of the time first is always beneficial because it makes you like then you can like I don't know,
learning the rules so that you can either choose to break them or not is always good.
Well, and not just the rules, but why the rules are the rules in the first place and why they work.
Yeah,
definitely. That's
psychology
really
of
cool.
color is really good to look into that stuff.
I love that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was created by a cinematographer, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think it's like a set. We're not create the whole psychology of color, but like I believe that one of the wheels was created by a cinematographer. So I don't think it's necessarily a rule. It's just a theory that people have that like, oh, these colors emit these emotions because reasons, and because this, and that. Doesn't necessarily have to be a rule. I've seen movies break those tropes and use like opposite situations, but it is interesting to study and see like, oh, that's interesting. And then you also notice like everywhere around you how much they use that. Like I think there was at some point they said that yellow and orange makes you hungry. So and then I started noticing that every single fast food place was yellow, red, and orange. Yeah, yellow, red, and orange, and those are like the colors that make you hungry or something.
That's why McDonald's has, so there's like different reasons for all these things.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's so cool to learn about, and you just want to. The more I learn, the more I want to learn. It's the weirdest thing. I'm like, yeah.
Is there anything else, honey, on the thing?
Yeah, there's still quite a few. So one of the tips, unless the story calls for it, try to fill the frame. I see a lot of independent films that have so much space around the characters, and there's no reason to have that space. So unless they're trying to make them feel like they're lonely, or they're smaller than something else, or like we need to be far away from them for some reason for the script, try to like fill the frame with them. If it's a full shot, them from the toes to a little above their head, but you know, not a huge gap between the ground and the sky and all this stuff that you don't really need unless it's for the story or if there's a reason for it. So they just said like fill your frame unless the story calls for it. Another thing is try to avoid the handheld unless story calls for it. That's why all these, you know, Hollywood movies, they're usually using a Steadicam or a dolly or all these things we've been learning about, sliders, cranes, because they provide very smooth movement. And they can, and sometimes when they're doing handheld, they're not actually holding it by hand, they're just mimicking it. I think Brian was talking about this in like last week, but they're like maybe shaking the Steadicam. So it's still on a Steadicam, but they're purposefully trying to add some movement to it just to make it mimic handheld without being as shaky. Because handheld, especially if you're like running after your subject, can get really extremely shaky and really ugly really quickly. So, and it looks cheap. So unless it's like supposed to be one of those types of movies where the person's holding a camera and they're found footage film or something, or just like you're trying to add an emotion of something's off and it's really creepy or, you know, whatever, try to get these pieces of equipment that'll make you be able to get more professional looking shots. Another thing that I thought was a really good tip, hold your shots. One, there's two reasonings for this, but like there's two different tips that go with this. Hold your shots. One means hold your shots. Don't try to do way too many shots if it's a quick scene, because once you get to editing and you have 30 different shots, but they're all, you know, like 3 seconds long and it's a minute clip or whatever, then you have to like shove it all in together and it's going to look like there's way too much going on, especially if it's not like a fight scene or something. It's going to look ridiculous. So you want to try to like keep that in mind. You don't have to jump around all over the place. You can hold on to a shot for 15, 20 seconds, depending on what's happening in the scene. That Minority Report scene we saw, that was a 2-minute clip and it was 4 shots. It was, you know, they zoomed in, not zoomed in, they dollied in for 2 of them, but the other ones were static and it lasted for 2 minutes altogether. So you don't have to be jumping around. You can see this a lot in some very small independent projects, or maybe even Hollywood movies do this sometimes, where they're jumping around, they're going all over the place and it feels too hectic. You don't even know what's going on. Or it's just like, why are we cutting? Why are we over here now? There's no point. There's no movement to do this. So they just kind of wanted to get a bunch of cool shots, and then or just a bunch of, they thought they needed it on set. And then you get to editing, it's like, well, we didn't need this many. So it's always better to just kind of like hold your shots sometimes, to have extra time with each shot so that, you know, the story comes out more than the camera work. And then another thing with hold your shots is actually on set. Once you call cut, don't just turn the camera off right then and there. Or even if you don't call cut, if like the scene's over and you're either an actor or a cinematographer or whatever you are, don't just assume that, okay, that means, you know, it's cut, because maybe there's something going on or there's a little moment that's happening right after the end of the take, and you want to capture that on camera. So you don't want to just stop the camera and say, yeah, we got it. You know, that scene is done. You want to like hold it there for a little moment, because you never know what something could bring, or you never know like if an actor might do something that you like and keep it in the film. They filmed I can't remember who's in Taxi Cab, but he was just talking to himself because he was bored, and they used a bunch of those clips. Taxi Driver, I think that's what I mean. And they used a bunch of those clips where he's talking to the mirror because it was interesting. Because he's just a guy, he's bored, so like, oh, that works. So I say like, don't be too focused on okay, we got it, we got the footage we wanted, cut. Wait, see if there's anything else, especially if it's an emotional moment. Maybe it's good to just linger there for a bit. And especially if you're on someone else's set, don't do it until they call cut. All right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So most of the time when you're on set and you're planning to go shoot something, you want to get your widest shots first most of the time, because then you don't have to move your lighting back and forth. You start out wide, you get it, and then you move closer in. Now it depends on your process, and it depends on the location, and maybe you have an actor that you need to get out first, and so you have to shoot them first. But generally speaking, shooting your wide shots means you can put your lights outside of the frame, and you can get your sound guy outside of the frame, capture that, and then move closer in where you can move the lights further in. Because if you start with your close, maybe you move your light really close to them, and then you realize, oh no, it's going to be in the wide shot, so I need to pull it back a farther, and now the lighting looks weird. Now I have to figure out a way to fix this, and all sorts of things. So it's always better to start out, well, generally speaking, I'm going to say this. Generally speaking, it's always better to start out with your wide shot and then move in for the closer ups, and then, do the reverses after that. Someone said this. I want to know your opinion on this, Brian and James, if you guys. Someone said film from the shadowed side of your subject because it adds depth and cinematic look. So wherever your light is, if it's lighting, the key light, if it's on the right screen right, so that'd be on the actor's left. If it's on their left, you don't want to be in the same side shooting. You want to be on the opposite end. One, so you don't cast shadows, and two, because it looks better from a for like the depth of their face and everything. So I want to know, like, you guys agree?
So there's a it's kind of like, it's not really a rule, like you said, it's not really a rule, but we learned this in Cinematography 101, where they talk about the long side of the face versus the short side of the face. Do you guys know what that is?
No, I've never heard that.
But when you're doing like an interview segment, I could show you, if I can share my screen, I can show you what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay, I'll stop sharing mine.
Share my screen. Is it gonna let me do it? Screen.
So yeah, James said generally, yeah, but honestly, it depends on what you need for the shot.
Can you guys see
Yep.
Mhm.
everything that's going on here? This is my Facebook.
A little
If I can
Mario
just get
background.
out of Facebook mode. All right, let's see, where's my YouTube at? Come on. Let's see what we got. Where's my channel at? So I did this interview here. So I like to, when you do interviews, you kind of like angle your subject a certain way.
Uh-huh.
Me personally, I like to angle them. So I like to see both ears, but more, let me see if I can get another video. This is the most common I see a lot. I'm not a big fan of this one. Let's see, where is it at? This right here. So this is NBC's news correspondent, Tracy Potts. You can see her on the news till this day. She's White House correspondent, Tracy Potts. And she came and she did an interview with us. And this is super old, but they normally angle them a certain way. So this side where you don't see the ear, that's considered the short side, because this is the short side of her jaw. And then this will be considered the long side. So you would light from the short side. So the key light, like you had said, the key light is bouncing off of her short side, casting shadows on her long side, right? And then you can see her key light, or her catch light, should I say, is in her eyes. So you guys, did you guys go over catch light?
No, I mean, lighting is for next semester, so we haven't dug too deep. We just did the basic lighting setups so far for lighting.
Okay, so it's pretty
Oh,
much
so-
like, so you see where the camera is, where she's facing off camera, and then the light is like literally like all the way over there on this side. bouncing off of her face this way, casting, and you can see where her little shadow where it's being cast, and the Rembrandt triangle right there. So this is like a traditional, like if you're not necessarily sure what you want to do with it, like you could just do a 3-point lighting setup like this. The light from the short side, get a little shadow, a little fill, so you can still see her jaw, and then a backlight. That's pretty much your basic 3-point lighting setup. Now, if you watch like MTV or like American Idol, they'll do the direct opposite and light from the long side of the face. And the reason why, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it if you know how to do it. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way if you know how to do it and you know why you're doing it like that. Or if you see a lot of a movie behind the scenes movie interviews where they're doing an interview with the director and like it just looks like his face is like overexposed. It's there's because they're lighting from the short side. So the reason why you don't want to, you can, but the reason why they say to light from the short side, because if you light on this side, the light is going to cast shadow on this side and you're really not going to see much of a shadow, which is cool. But let's say her cheekbone, the light is going to cast like this shine, or it's going to be unflattering on that side. Or if she has oily skin, you're gonna see it. It's gonna come up in the light. So that's why they want you to light from the short side to put the shadows over here on this side.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So I kind of did it with this one here.
I'm sorry, would you want to catch her other cheek or not?
I mean, it's up to you. It's
Oh,
really
okay.
up to you. Like if you're okay with, and like I said, like it's like if you watch like MTV or like reality show TVs, they'll put a light there, but it's usually like a soft light and they'll put a lot of makeup on there to try to, but like let's just say you don't have makeup, you didn't have a makeup artist or something like that, and you put a light on her, like it's going to show, like you're going to see like the oily skin tone and all whatnot on her face. So
Gotcha.
it's just less flattering to light from this side,
Yeah.
And I don't have an example from lighting because I don't light from that side. I don't have an example of it. I always light from as you can see in this one here, I always light from the back side. What is it at? This is not even an interview, but I'm lighting from the short side here.
Right.
It's got a little bounce right there. This one is the same thing. Let's see, where's her? No, let's see. Short side right here. So if I were to light, and then another thing about it is if you light on the other side, if we were to light on the opposite side, it would kind of like, sometimes it kind of interferes with the exposure because it would just be too bright. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to like
It
having it
puts
over
light.
here. Yeah. So there's all kinds of reasons, but like I said, like there's really it's not going to be like, oh, a forbidden no, like, oh, you lit on the wrong side of the face. Because when I was in film school, that was one of the things that they would judge you on. They'd be like, oh, well, you filmed on the the wrong side of the face,
Yeah.
But then I'll go home and watch television, and I'll be like, well, they lit on the wrong side of the face, We've just been conditioned. The thing is with like news interviews and reality TV, like they can just throw lights on there and people will accept it for what it is, And this one here, it's hard to tell, but I'm light. You could tell. So here's the thing about the catch light. So these little reflections in his eyes are telling you where I put the light. And then it could also tell you what kind of light I have too, because it can make a shape, either a round or a square shape or whatever. And then you can see the reflection in his glasses. So like if you're ever wondering like, oh, well, where did he put his light? You can look at the catch light in his eyes and it'll kind of tell you kind of which direction the light is in. Also a thing to keep in mind, like if you're going to light from the short side, so like I have a light here bouncing and then I have another light actually hitting him here to fill it in. you have to keep in mind, you have to pay attention to where the shadows are going in the background as well. So if you put a light on his short side, you would want the background light to be facing the same direction. Otherwise, the shadows are going to be going this way and his shadows are going to be going that way, and it's just going to look weird and unnatural and whatnot. And then this one, you can see his catch light is here. This is where I'm putting his light going that way. I'm using the window as his backlight. And then I have a light here on this background, but this is, like you were saying, the mixture of color temperatures. So I'm mixing the outside with this. It's actually a practical, there's actually a lamp on this thing here that I'm using, that I'm mixing here. And then here, oh, here's another one I'll show you. This is a very good one. I flipped the script. This is the stuff I shot over the weekend, by the way.
All of this or what? For this video?
Oh no, this is the short I was telling you about that they shot over in 2 days.
This one.
That
you're on now.
So yeah.
Okay.
So I have a big light up on the ceiling, and that's hitting him, and it's kind of giving him that Rembrandt right there. And then this is again what you guys were talking about with the orange and blues. So like let's see, the color temperature, the mixing of the color
See, like that's
temperatures.
different because I was talking about like actually having an orange light in it.
Well, it kind of is. It just doesn't show up on camera a lot. It's like you can change the saturation, and it may look orange to you, but it won't look orange in camera. But where is it? Where is it at? Where is it at? So this is
No, because there's
called,
definitely some. There's definitely some that do have it very orange.
Oh, and that's another thing. So like I was telling you, I think I brought up in the last one of the classes we were talking about. If you have to have like a reason for the light. So he has like this blue on his face here because the background is got like a blue light in the background. Oh, I skipped. Back. And then for him, you would have, if you're going to have blue, you would have to make an excuse to why you have it in your shot. So for him, like I have this blue kind of bouncing off of his back here, but it's coming in through this window in this next shot here to kind of explain where that light is coming from. But when you move the camera around, like that light doesn't show up on him. So like I had to put another light like specifically on him to exaggerate it, like over exaggerate it a bit.
Right.
To explain like why I'm putting blue gels on his jawline here in this first shot we did. It's because of that window.
Right.
So that's another thing you have to look for when you're doing your cinematography. Like if you're going to put a gel on a subject, you have to ask yourself, is there windows to even explain like the colors I'm going with? Or is there like a practical in there I can use to explain? So like here, this is, all right, this should be a good example. So here I'm backlighting and the light is giving him this nice rim, and I have a fill here. So this really isn't a traditional 3-point lighting setup, but so you see how it looks very soft and contrasty in this first frame, but then when you cut to this shot here in a second, when he cuts over, where's it at? Where's it at? Boom. So now you can see like it completely changed. It's the same light. I didn't move it. It's the same light. But as you can see, like it's kind of like hitting his face completely different from the other shot you just saw. So this would be his long side, and then this is his short side. So that's what that looks like. So you have to ask yourself the question, like, what kind of mood am I trying to set for exposing for the short side or the long side of the face?
Yeah.
It just gives you a completely different feel, a different look. Lighting from the short side for me it's just more easier on the eyes. Lighting from the long side is more bright, more, less shadows, of course, because the shadows are going to go on the short side of the face as opposed to on the long side of the face.
Right.
So V was asking, I was going to ask if you can put one or only had one at the ceiling, would that still be considered short or called something else?
If you had one at the ceiling,
Yeah,
what does she mean?
probably a light.
Like, I mean, if you're only using one light, is that what she means?
I assume so, because
It's just in
that's
the
what we're
chat.
talking about.
The actor with the hood scene, there was a ceiling light, she said.
Oh, let me go back to it. Boom, 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 boom. So behind this wall here, there's a light right here, which I'm using for my key, and it's exposing his face here, and it's got that warm tone. So these aren't like your traditional tungsten lights. Those were the ones you get from like Home Depot or something, and they're like, them things are like, they're not bright, but they're like super yellow. Like if I can, I know I'm not gonna be able to see it.
She said,
I'm
is
gonna show it in
that
the
still
film.
considered a short light? And does that technique help with wearing hats or hoodies in a dimly lit room?
Yes and no. Let me see. Let me go. So the light is on the ceiling, so it's hitting his hoodie and is casting a shadow on him. So it really all depends on where you angle your subject. It really all depends. So I'm gonna go back to. I'll go to this side. So this would be the short. She's angled this way. When she angles herself that way, her jaw on this side gets short. So that's considered the short side. If she would have turned in the other direction, then this would be her short side. You call this the long side because this is, when you're looking at her from this angle, this is considered the long side of her face, and this is considered the short side of her face. So if I put a light on this side, it's going to bring a shadow over here. If I put a light on this side, it's going to cast shadows over in this direction. But when you put lights over here, her cheekbones are going to like be exaggerated and whatnot, and you might not want that, or you might want it. It depends on what you think and what you don't, what you like and what you don't like. If I put a light here, then you're not going to see her cheekbone. You're just going to see a lot of shadows covering up her face down through her neck and whatnot. So like if she had a hat on, yeah, like you might want to put like a little fill here, because like the hat is going to cast a shadow all over her face. But you can use a reflector just to bounce light back up into it to defeat that. But that's a whole nother technique, and it's super hard to work with.
You said it's hard to work with reflectors?
Reflectors? Yeah. Because you got to find, because if your characters are moving and you're holding a reflector, it gets kind of like, yeah. So, and then this is all just soft lighting. I kind of got tired, and I was like, I don't feel like trying to do anything creative with that. This was pretty cool. I'm gonna put a gunshot right there. Gonna come down. That's a reveal.
That's cool.
And I didn't have my my wide lens, so I couldn't do any tricks with the gun. But I always try to do it. But that's all. Any other questions on that? Short side, long side of the face.
Thank you for that, man. I just
Yeah,
learned
thank
a
you.
hell of a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had
cool.
no
Yeah.
idea about that stuff. I'll definitely add those into the syllabus for lighting, because I never even heard of that. So I'm glad you talked about that.
How do I get out of this?
Yeah. I have to get
Out of the
going.
share? I can get you out of the.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, so another tip for cinematography and stuff is they say like don't film on white walls unless that's all you got. But they're a little more boring and dull and flat looking. And they also cause problems with, I think Brian was actually talking about this at one point, when you're filming on white walls, they do like a, what's the thing called where it looks like it's like a circle or something and it's like condensing down on itself?
A warp. I don't. So somebody had one of
Like
one.
warping or something. I don't know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I can never remember it for the love of anything. But yeah.
But yeah, so it, like filming on white walls causes problems, and it also looks boring and dull. So they say to try to, put some either like a color for the wall, like a light, or um, some kind of poster or whatever you can get that makes it stand out, makes it look a little different, and not just this dull, boring, plain thing in the background. So that's one thing. Be sure to prep and think about the technicals as well as the creativity. Don't just think only creative. Think, how are we going to actually get this done? Because that goes in with timing and, the realistic capabilities of getting these shots. Don't be too rigid in the way you shoot, but also don't be too fluid without a plan. That's actually from Roger Deakins. So that's a really good tip. Like, don't be too stuck in like, this is how it has to be, especially if you make like a storyboard or something like that, or a shot list. Be fluid with like, be a little more fluid with what can be added or what can be taken out if time needs to be, if time is very short and you don't have enough time to get everything. You want to figure out a way to like what's actually needed, what's not, what's just, something that would be nice to have. But also don't be so fluid to where you don't have any kind of plan, because then you're going to arrive on set and it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to spend a lot more time figuring everything out. So it's always good to have a mixture of the two. Make a plan, but then be open to changing it or to scrapping it entirely. Don't let equipment or budget hold you back from going at it and being creative and just shooting. Like a lot of people get held up with, well, if I had this piece of equipment or if I have this lens, then I can do it. And yeah, a more expensive equipment and a bigger budget helps, because of course, then you can afford whatever you want. Well, you can afford more of what you want, but don't let that like make you just sit back and wait until you have everything you need, because you're never going to have all the stuff that you think you would need for like the best of the best. So because it's way too expensive, there's way too much, and it keeps changing and upgrading. So always be aware of that. Like, guys, you don't want to get too wrapped up in equipment. A cinematographer, if they're really good, they can take a crappy camera, not a crappy, but a decently cheap camera, and make something look really great, when a new person can come with the highest grade camera and they can still look like crap because they didn't do anything with lighting. They didn't do anything with what Brian was just showing us, all these tricks and techniques that you can learn and see and use to your advantage when the story calls for it, to figure out how to make a good shot with just, maybe a lamp on the table. Like, you can figure out different ways to do stuff. If you come up with excuses all the time of why you can't do something, then you probably shouldn't be in this industry, is what somebody said. So I agree. Like, if you're always coming up with an excuse of why something can't happen or why you need to wait, then most likely you're just going to keep waiting, or you're going to keep, like, people in this group, even in the first semester, there was somebody who said, well, I'm just waiting until I feel, what did they say? Priscilla, do you remember? He said like he didn't feel it. You're muted.
He didn't feel motivated enough.
Oh yeah, so he said he was waiting to feel motivated until he even like learned about filmmaking with us. So like you're never gonna do it then. Like, you have to motivate yourself. If you don't feel motivated, then push yourself to be. Like, and once you start learning it, you might feel like you like it, or maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you don't like it. But just waiting for that moment is not gonna. You're never gonna get anywhere. So always be. Don't be making too many excuses about why you can't do something, because you can always go out and shoot something even if it looks like crap, because you're going to learn a lot from why it looks like crap or what you can do better next time and everything like that. Be creative with technical problem solving. There's a lot of things that happen on set. Maybe you thought you could get this shot, but the room is too tight, so you have to figure out a way to go around it. Or maybe, you know, the lighting, you go out into the outside scene and, oh, we thought we would get this with the nice sunlight, but oh, it's a cloudy day. Now you have to figure out a way to go around doing this. Or maybe the sun is a problem and you didn't expect the sun to be out. Maybe you thought it would be cloudy. Or, you know, anything like that. Maybe you thought that, like for me, maybe I thought this slider would work, but it doesn't. Well, now I got to figure out a way to get this shot without, you know, ruining it. And if I had thought of that thing that Jorge and Brian said, you know, using a towel and just sliding it across the table, it might have looked a lot better than that shaky, the shaky slider I used, because it wasn't working the way I wanted. So that, you know, you got to problem solve it. Study cinematography and styles you like. You always want to like be aware of different types of cinematography and, you know, something you align more with. Why do you think this looks cool? Why do you, well, look at some cinematographers that do light. If you like short lighting from the short side, look at some cinematographers that light from the short side and then see, oh yeah, I like this a lot better. Why? And then, you know, you can kind of start seeing your own style and kind of getting inspiration for your own. Don't depend on fix it in post. Everyone says this, you know. Fix it in post is terrible, a terrible mindset. It's going to add more time, it's going to add more costs, and it's going to be, it might not even be fixable. So it's depending on the depending on the kind of equipment, if you're shooting raw, yeah, you can fix a lot more like color temperatures and stuff in post. But if you're shooting with anything other than raw, it's a lot harder to match what you're originally going for. So it's always better to get it on set. All right, see you, Sarah.
Yeah, see you guys soon. Wednesday.
Yeah, no, actually, we're gonna be doing the book study the week after. So, see you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right. Another person said, don't just learn one thing. You may have to fill in for multiple roles depending on the set, especially if it's a lower budget. Like I was saying earlier, you want to know and appreciate others' work and process too. So if you're a DP, you want to know how long and appreciate that these lighting crews and these camera crew, even if you've never done that specific role, maybe you've never been a grip, but you can appreciate because you know what they do and you know like how long stuff takes, so you can appreciate their work and understand that they're not just there doing nothing. And you can also understand opposite of that. You can understand when they're taking too long with something. If you've done a job and you're like, this shouldn't be taking this long. All they're doing is setting up this one light, you know, and maybe you've done it before. And then you'll start to understand like when things should be, if someone's doing a good job, if someone's not doing a good job, and when someone's just kind of being lazy, taking their time, or when they actually have problems and they need to use that time to set up. Block, light, rehearse, tweak, shoot, repeat. That's what a lot of people say. So block, figure out where the actor's going to go. Then once they go off to do makeup and final looks, you light up the scene, you rehearse it, then you tweak anything that doesn't work, you shoot it, and then you move all your stuff and you start the next process again, and you start it over and over until you get everything right. That's the most professional way to do it. Of course, time constraints might make you skip a few steps, but that's the basic of how to get shots. Crews respect clear and fast decision making, take the blame for mistakes, and be a responsive leader or team player, depending on if you're leading it or if you are just being a part of it. Make up for your mistakes. Take the blame if it is your fault. Don't try to pass it on the blame to someone else. Be responsible if you're the leader, and be open-minded, like we were saying. Other crew may have more experience and knowledge. Brian was talking about this earlier. Use them to help solve problems. Trust people. You don't have to figure everything out on your own. So don't go into it thinking like that these people with more experience. Don't get defensive and feel like you need to really show how you know what you're doing, because not really anyone knows exactly what they're doing all the time. So it's always good to have help. And even like Brian was saying, it's always good to have two creative minds are better than one, whether the person knows everything or not. All right, Arden, V, thanks guys. Another thing they say is don't fight in public. If there's a disagreement coming from like one of the crew members, try to see where they're coming from first, and if it's still going to be a problem, try to see if you can like take them on the side and talk to them without it becoming a whole thing for everyone to hear and see. It's always better to have those kinds of disagreements in private. And they also said don't do the whole like, can I see you in private? Like really making it a public ordeal that you're going to speak to them in private, but actually being delicate with it and taking them to side like, hey, can we talk about this over here so that we can be a little more just you and me. And because it just it's never good for the whole set to hear all that. They say don't change the aperture stops too much. Try to stick to one for all the angles of your scene, as changing it will make things inconsistent, lighting, and just the different amounts of blur that are either in the foreground or background. So you don't want to change your aperture too much within a scene. And they say sometimes try to keep it throughout the whole project unless certain scenes call for it. And then wide angle lenses have more focus, but they're less sharpness. So keep that in mind. They say a reel is better than camera gear. If you're a cinematographer, you're not a rental house. So having a good reel is always better than having just like really good camera gear, because most places aren't expecting you to have your own. Like some are, but lower budget might, higher budget, they just they want you for your work. Anyway, does anybody have any questions or comments or any additional tips?
I was gonna see if maybe Brian could talk a little bit about what you were just mentioned with the aperture and the consistency of it, and just maybe his experience with that.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Well, I mean, you're going to have to because the second you move the camera, your whole lighting setup changes. But Lakota did mention that you would want to start with your wider shots first, or your master shots, should I call them, first, and then move in, because like once you start getting into what is called the inserts or the close-ups, it's easy to just like you go from a wide master to a close-up, and then you say, oh well, now I move the camera and his backlight is too hot now. So you can, I mean, most likely you're going to have to adjust the light and not the aperture, but there are times where you might find yourself setting up a shot and you're like, well, over here I was wide open, but here I might want to close it down a little bit. Maybe I don't want that much depth of field in my shot.
Mm-hmm.
Or vice versa. So no,
it depends on the different types of shots. There was just a general.
Cody, you texted me instead of Mel.
No, I texted her. I mean, I texted the general.
No, you didn't. It says private message.
No, I did. Anyway, yeah, I completely agree with all
Direct
that.
message.
No, I didn't. Anyway.
Check. Look at it.
Yeah, it says me to everyone.
And before that, it was a private message.
Yep.
You resent it.
Yep. Anyway, I completely agree. It depends on the type of shot. Like that wasn't a rule. Like that was just a tip for like generally, Stephen, generally try to keep the aperture the same, especially if it's from the same side of the room kind of angles. Like you don't want to have too much of a difference and too much. The more consistent you can keep things, the better. Now, if the close-up needs to have the whole background taken out, like blurred out, then yeah, you would change the aperture maybe to like all the way up and then lower the lighting to make it kind of match. But for the most part, you generally want to keep it the same so it's not inconsistent like that and the lighting's not changing and the blurred isn't changing and all this other stuff. Because every time you change a lens, it's also going to change how blurred the background is or how things look. So it depends on that stuff too. It's not just about the aperture, but generally you want to try to keep it as consistent as you can for the most part, unless the shot calls for it.
Also, it's like you're gonna find yourself in this situation where you're gonna have to open your aperture up more, even if you don't want to, just because like let's say you're shooting in a situation where you're relying on the sun and the sun is going down, and then you might have to open it up depending on like so that's another thing. I think we covered time management, but like sometimes you gotta know when to call it a day and just say we're gonna reshoot it. But like if you're in a pinch and you're like, man, I just gotta get these last 2 shots, then you might find yourself adjusting your aperture or your ISO or whatever to try to make up for the lack of light that's there. But however, like it's still gonna.
Or the opposite, you might see that it's like, oh, it's too bright, so I gotta lower this aperture down, or
Well, not even that. Like you'll brighten it up, but the shadows are still there. So the sun is still going down and it's casting more and more shadows. So like even though you brighten your aperture up, you're gonna notice an inconsistency in the continuity because like, one shot he was exposed a certain way and there's not that much shadow, but then the sun went down and then you come back to a shot and now he has all these shadows there. He's still exposed correctly, but there's all these shadows there.
yeah.
Mhm. I found myself in that situation one time. So it's like a good idea to like know. And I said this before, like just give yourself the time. Don't try to shoot later on in the day if you know you need a lot of light from the sun. Like shoot midday, noonish. Well, indoors, but you don't want to shoot outside in the noon at noon or anything like that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Or in the nude. You don't want to shoot in the nude too.
Yeah, you picked that up.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. I didn't catch that. Yeah, okay, so we'll move on real quick. This shouldn't take too long. It was just the music ownership form and script continuity. We kind of already talked about these things. Well, not the music one, but music one's kind of the same as like the other forms we were talking about last week, where you're just trying to sign off a form that says, hey, I'm allowed to use this music, or you're trying to say,
That's the only way you're spinning.
okay. So it's just a form to agree to what kind of compensation the owner gets or the composer gets of the music licensing, like what the fee is going to be, and if they're going to get compensation for it continuous, like every time you release it to something else, are they going to get royalties or are they not? You want to have all this type of stuff in the contract. It's a document that allows a filmmaker or production company to use composers or owners' music in their film. Or it's also like if you're composing music for your film, you're probably going to be buying it from that composer so that you have the rights. So you're either buying the rights or you're buying the rights to use the music. And those are two distinct things. And you want to make sure that you understand the wording and that they understand the wording so that they understand what's happening and you understand what's happening and everything's clear between the two parties and everyone knows what no one's trying to screw anyone out of a deal. They're just like, hey, you made this music for my film. Just know it's mine. Once you sign this and say I pay you whatever amount, you're giving this to me and I can use it how I want from there on. Give you credit, but yeah, you know what I mean? So there's different forms you can find online depending on what you need. You probably have to like either make it yourself or find one online and adjust it. But they're generally all the same. It's just like saying I have music license agreement or film score composer agreement. They're going to do this for my film. They're going to go watch it and compose these things, these songs, or they're going to if you have them on the actual film production, they're actually in scene. You'll have a different contract for allowing them to be seen. You'll have the forms we were talking about last, where you have that actor release form, and you'll have these film composer forms as well, where it says I can use your music and I can use your likeness. But if it's just their music or if it's just a song they have, then you'll use one of these types of forms too. sign off on them and agree that you can use it so that there are no copyright claims and there's no legal issues later down the line where they say you're not allowed to have my music in your film or your project, so you got to get it off and you have to take the whole thing down and figure out, you could be sued for it. So you just want to be careful with that and make sure you always have contracts. Pretty much just have contracts for every single thing, every single person that you get on to your set. You want to make sure you have a contract of some form with them, whether in whatever location or music or actor or crew. You want to make sure you have all these forms saying that they agreed to all these things. They agreed to this payment or to do it voluntarily. And they agreed that either you're not responsible for them getting hurt, but they're also aware that you have, if you do, they are aware that you have that insurance to protect if anything happens. So yeah, does anybody have any questions or comments? Brian, have you ever used one of these?
No. Music agreement, no. I usually just go on royalty-free music, so I don't even have to worry about that.
Yep. That's another option too.
But it is good to have. I've never really gone through. I've worked on a project where they've had a film score and a composer and stuff like that, but not on my personal. I've been on set with the guy, but no, I've never used it.
Oh, cool. But yeah, that's another option, guys. It's like if you want music, there's plenty of websites that have royalty free, where you pay either you pay a fee for a subscription, or there's some free ones where you just have to give them credit for certain songs, where they have some that are paid, some that are free. So there's different websites you can get music from where they already have the contract kind of built in and you sign off on that as you get it, and then you get access to it through their website. So
I think I'm not necessarily sure where you would go, but there's a platform where you can get rights to certain samples of songs. So if you've ever listened to any type of rap music, that rap music just pretty much samples everything. So if you're wondering how is it that this artist is able to sample that song, it's because they could pay for a small snippet of the song so they can use it in their music and whatnot. And I think it's kind of similar to this. And I also think there's also a stipulation for advertising purposes. I think it's they can use up to 10 seconds of the music and then everything else they have to pay for or something like that.
I think there is some kind of time frame thing, but I think it also depends on what kind of project, and it depends on where you are. So there's a lot of rules to that. But yeah, you want to be aware of that type of stuff too, guys. There's sometimes you can use a certain length of a song and it's not illegal or it's not copyrighted because you're only using 5 seconds or 2 seconds or whatever it is. So sometimes it's okay, but it depends on the area and it depends.
Yeah, not to cut you off, there's also music copyrights have expiration dates. I think if the song is over 60 years old or something like that, it's all free to use. So if you want to use this song, I don't know, a 60-year-old song, I'm not sure. I'm not even sure. It could be 40. I don't know the exact date, but there's a time frame to certain songs that you don't have to even worry about it because it's just free to use.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I learned that from the 48-hour festivals.
I think it's 90. I mean, that kind of sucks, but I think it's 90 years now.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know it's some kind of ridiculous number, but yeah.
It's public domain.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, yeah. Well, that's also good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least to maybe you're using a super old song or you're using a record. You could be oh, does this fall under this rule?
Yeah, because I did a 48 and we were going back and forth about using the song Jingle Bells or Jingle Bells. And I was I don't think we need to get the rights to that. And we looked it up. They're oh, yeah. As long as it's over a certain time, we can use it.
Oh, that's cool. Good to know. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments other than that for the music stuff? All right. Well, one thing I like.
So it says here the length of a copyright protection varies from country to country, but music, along with most other creative works, generally enters the public domain 50 to 75 years after the death of the creator.
Okay, there, that was the stipulation.
That's the creator. Holy crap.
Mm.
That's pretty old.
We got to kill Michael Jackson to get his music. Okay, gotcha.
Oh, well, Paul McCartney's the one you're paying anyway, so.
Ah, yeah.
All works published in the United States before 1924 are in the public domain. Works published after 1923, 24. All works published after 1923, but before 1978 are protected for 95 years from the date of publication. If the work was created but not published before 1978, the copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years.
Okay.
That seems to be a general rule of thumb. Do you want me to send that to the WhatsApp group?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I just wanted to check because I was curious.
But yeah, like what Brian was saying with the whole when it expires and stuff, there's actually been some TV shows, if you've noticed. Like I noticed Scrubs was one of them that on the DVD, if you get like the DVD or if you watched it when it first came out, they had a lot of these different songs. And then because those contracts ran up and they are still putting it out to like Netflix or other streaming services, now they have to renew all those contracts, and a lot of those songs, not a lot, but some of those songs were different, and it actually changes the scene a lot. So it's also be aware of
But Nelly had to be removed. That was one of them.
if you're ever trying to use something and you're doing one of these contracts and you're feeling like maybe you'll be using it for a long time, be aware that you might have to renew your contracts or lose the music. So if it's really tied into the movie, be aware that it's going to be they have the upper hand at that point if you have to renew the contract later on. So just always be aware of that. All right, the last thing I was going to talk about is just continuity log sheets.
When we should probably email V, ask her if she's going to finish watching this, and if so, send her the link to this as well. I don't want to just send it to her. She won't really understand why I'm sending.
Of what?
Of the
emailing it. Yeah. Okay.
screenshot. Yeah.
Gotcha. So the continuity log sheets are like the shots, the takes, the lenses, the f-stop ISO, and any notes. And they use a script supervisor will be using this, and they'll be using this to keep track of the different shots, if they worked well, if they didn't, what went wrong, or maybe something about the continuity, like if they're going to film a scene and if you're going to film a scene and it's in the same room and you're trying to get this whole thing done and it doesn't work out because you planned it for a day and then it was like, oh, it's a lot more than I thought, so you have to pick up the rest the next day. Well, you want to remember where the actors were, what hand they used to pick up that item, anything like that. All those little things you want to remember, and it's easier to remember if you have both the notes and the visuals instead of just relying on, oh, well, we have it in camera. It's always good to have this kind of stuff because it's a good way to quickly look at it and see what happened in that last take. And, oh, do we have a take where he picks up with his left hand? Maybe we can combine those. And so these script supervisor will be keeping track of all these things. And this sheet at the end will go to the editor, and it'll be a lot easier for them to figure out what's a usable take and what's not. So they'll use this form along with like the camera reports and the sound reports to figure out like all the good takes and if they can combine them, and that'll make them a lot easier and quicker for the editor to figure out, if this is good and if it's usable, and if not, like maybe they can't use sound on this one. And so the continuity person will be keeping up with all these different things, like the different shots and takes, and they'll circle the ones that are really good. They'll put an NG next to not good, or PU for like a pickup. That would be like if you're shooting a scene that's a minute long and you're shooting your shot is, let's say your shot's 30 seconds long and it covers a paragraph of dialogue. And there was one take where the actor did really well, except for this last line, or except for the first line, everything else was great. So you'll do a pickup where you'll start in the middle or at the end, and you'll just get like a little snippet of whatever that scene was. And they'll do this to edit in to the one that they liked. So like scene take 2 was really good except for that last line. So then maybe they'll take it from a new angle, or they'll do it again. Instead of starting all the way over, since it's 30 seconds and time is money, you want to make sure you try to speed through it. So they'll just do a pickup shot of, okay, like pick up where you left off at that last line, lead into it, and then go. Or maybe they'll have 2 characters that are conversing, and they'll want to just have it pick up from one actor's point because the other actor nailed it. So there's different reasons, but you'll have a pickup, and that'll help the editor know like that they're not missing footage, and that it's just the ending or the beginning or whatever of the scene. And then the next thing is they'll put series in the notes if it's multiple takes without cutting. So sometimes you'll be like, don't cut, because sometimes it takes longer to like call action, and call like camera rolling and sound speed and all this stuff. So sometimes it's easier just to go back to one, everyone goes back to their position 1, and then go action, and then they go again, and they don't even cut the camera. So the camera's rolling for maybe like 10 minutes when really the shot's going to take 2 minutes, and they've done it 5 times, or they just keep resetting. And so if that happens, the continuity person will put series next to it so the editor knows what kind of shot this is. Oh, there's multiple takes within this shot. It's not just the camera rolling for no reason. They'll also keep notes if there's any problems with the takes, and why something's a problem. Like maybe there was a sound, like an airplane flew over, and so now that sound's unusable. So they're putting like the sound won't, airplane flew by, or whatever reason it doesn't work. They write down why, and it makes it easier to see. Like, okay, well, if an airplane flew over, that means maybe we can still use the footage if they're not able to use the footage on anything else. So. Some of them might have like an estimated take length and then how long it actually took. So they might have like, this take was estimated to be 30 seconds, but it actually took 45 seconds because the actor went through the dialogue slower than we thought they would. So they'll write that stuff down to help the editor as well, to kind of get a better idea of different, how long this whole thing's going to be, or like where they need to cut and which take. Like maybe they can't use a 45-second take, so they need to figure out like if this takes, the actor went through this take a little quicker, this one was 35 seconds, good, because sometimes they have so much footage that they need to cut out a bunch of things. So knowing what kind of length these different takes of the same scene are really help the editor to figure out what they want to do. And yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to cover in that. It's pretty self-explanatory when you look at the actual forms. You kind of see like what each thing is and what it's for. So yeah, does anybody have any questions or anything about that?
I was curious how often like someone like Brian, who has had a lot of experience, how often do the directors actually make use of doing a series, and how often does that come into play? Like, is it a common thing or a not common thing?
What do you mean doing a series? Like a series of sheets like this? What do you mean?
No, where they don't say cut, they just say like go back to 1, and they keep doing the same scene a few times.
Yeah, we do that all the time. We say reset or back to 1 or back to 2, because it's just a lot of work to reslate a take. So to save time and we'll just say reset. We do it a lot. The only downside to that is that you end up with a really long video take, and the editor has to go through it. But you have, on a bigger budget, you have editors assistants that go through and they go through these continuity logs, and they read through it, and they chop it all up so that the actual editor goes in and he has all his clips lined up and labeled and everything like that. Before we had all this digital technology and stuff like that, a film editor would be the one to a film editor, but a film cutter would have to go through those and cut them individually, the long takes. So they would say the problem is, like, let's say take 3 or whatever, like you do take 1 is no good, take 2 is no good, take 3 you reset like 4 or 5 times and the good take is in take 3. Now you have to find it. So like the film cutter would have to go, they would find take 3 and then they would go and have to find the good take, as opposed to just having the whole long take.
Wow, that's a lot of extra work.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, it's just to cut down on time, Stephen. It's like reslating is writing down the new information. Everybody has to fill in more of these worksheets. If everyone's using these, then they'll have to like keep filling them out. And it also requires everyone quiet on set, like calling the camera and the sound to start going again, and then having everybody ready and, start. If there's like background actors moving, then you'll signal them and then you start action and all that. So, and then even when you call action, sometimes the actors take, they wait for like 5 seconds before actually starting the scene, just to make sure everything's really quiet or just to get in that headspace. So not calling action also helps them to stay in that moment continuously instead of cutting and like, now we're back to reality. They can stay in that character moment for longer. So there's multiple reasons why directors will just be like, back to 1, keep it going. Speed, time, and for the actors as well. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? All right. So that was it for today. We'll tell everyone to watch the ending since most people left. But I just wanted to say, like, Thursday we'll be looking over like professional look. That's more of like, I didn't want to say film look because I don't really think, for me personally, I don't think film look is exactly like the best. I like things to look a little more clean than what a film look would be, which is a little more dirty and a little more, just a little bit like old film style would have, a little bit of a, I don't know what you call it, but some people like it a lot. I personally don't, but I like knowing about like how professionals get their like really good look. So it's probably going to be a lot about different, how to like color grade your images and how to set up the lighting and stuff like that. I'm not really sure exactly, but it's just some stuff talking about how to get like a really good professional looking shot or scene. More advanced camera functions. I think this is going to take a bit because it's a lot of detail and technical stuff. This is the kind of stuff that's like waveform, ND filters. We talked a little bit about ND filters already, but waveform, ND filters, vectorscope, peaking. There's a lot of different things that cameras can do, especially the higher end you go, and that help out so that you're not doing it all by eye. And they help with different things like focus and lighting and other things. They're doing like these technical readings and kind of giving you that data. Negative colors, another thing we'll learn about. So that's a lot of that type of stuff. And then non-disclosure agreements, which are also important for everybody to have, so that nobody's giving out anything about your set, nobody's giving anything out about the story, nobody's taking pictures of the main twist at the end and then posting it on their Instagram the next day, and now the twist is ruined because it came out before we even did the film. So these non-disclosure agreements tell everybody to keep their mouth shut about what's happening on set, pretty much. And that's it. That's what we'll go over on Thursday, guys. So let's pay attention, not pay attention, study that stuff. That's it. I'm going to stop the recording. What?